Hello, it is time for generational change. I'm Jen.
I'm Peter, and we're going to find out if we are technologically savvy or technologically incompetent.
We're gonna find out, but you know what? We're gonna see how this goes. We haven't done this before, so there's probably a learning curve.
Hope everybody's doing well this evening. As you guys know, we're going to try to keep this consistent going forward. We're going to do this on the first Saturday of the month. The rest of the Saturdays, I will be doing my solo show since, Jen's old and tired and doesn't want to do 3 shows a week. Just kidding. But yeah, Jen is
I
entitled.
caught that, Rachel. I said Jen. I don't know. I felt like this is more of a casual vibe.
I did say Jen. Oh,
No,
yeah.
because I've been saying I'm Jen Perlman. We've been being so much more formal, but I feel like this is the call-in show. It's a little bit more of I was trying to be a little bit more
Hey, listen, I
casual.
didn't want to insult Shama when she was on the other night, but she kept calling me Colin the whole time.
I know people think that's because I think yeah, it's happened before.
Yeah, it has, but that's okay. I mean,
John, there are people that called you John when it was John.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. I got John too. I don't know. Do I look? I mean, I've always felt that I looked like my name, but do you
I
feel
think that's a ridiculous thing to say.
I don't look like my name?
No, I think it's ridiculous to think people look like I think you get used to what you're used to. That's what I think. I think we don't know any different.
Well, hold on a minute. That's not entirely true because some people like their middle name. Some people just don't like their name.
It's not about what you like. But that's not what you said. It's not about whether you like it. It's like I feel like I look like that. Well, yeah, because that's what your name is. Like if your name was something else your whole life, you would think you looked like that.
Well, I've asked a lot of people over the years when they don't know my name or they didn't remember my name, and I said it starts with a P, and very often I get Peter.
Well,
Paul.
okay. Well, I wonder why.
I look like Peter.
You look Irish. Those are typical names that start with a P. In fact, if I were gonna pick a name for a white Irish person your age, I would go with Peter or Paul. So,
Actually, that's very common amongst Italians as well. Patrick is definitely more of the common American Irish name that starts with a P, I would say.
I'm just saying it's statistically, it seems like it could be in their favor. I don't think that's, oh my God, you look like a Peter. That's ridiculous.
Well, to each their own. It's obviously been an interesting week. We could go one of 2 ways, Jen. Obviously, we've got a couple of different stories that we can tackle. Doesn't really involve prep. Obviously, it's relevant to, I think, most, if not all of, what we would be talking about story-wise on a regular night that's relevant to everything that's going on right now, including Trump, who decided to do a press conference with Governor DeSantis earlier today. And in trying to get away from his whole alligator Alcatraz conversation, they just had to bring up Zohran Mamdani, and we really got to look into this guy. He's really dangerous. I'm telling you, you even said it's like the Streisand effect. He's going to end up becoming so much more powerful and relevant in the grand scheme of politics because of the fact that they just will not stop shining a bright light on him. And it's not like he's even seeking it. A lot of times, a lot of these people will do things in politics because they want the attention. They're trying to maintain and grow their brand. Zohran doesn't have to do anything. They're just going to talk about him just like freewheeling all the time.
He's like the anti-Trump. You know how much media attention Trump got that was negative for so long, but
the times where Trump would do where they wouldn't cover Bernie, but they would cover Trump's empty podium.
Right. So and out of total, because they're ridiculous. Yeah, they just help the situation, and that's what they're doing here, except this could be, for a decent human. And again, I'm not singing anyone's praises until I see what they do, but I think fairly attest he's not an evil piece of shit. So I'm thinking, he's the anti that.
Yes, I would.
Regardless of what he does, he's, he has a pretty good, lengthy, track record of doing good things. A lot of good things. We're about good things.
We're for good things and against bad things.
Exactly.
The thing. I thought it was a joke, but in reality, that's, Biden saying that is kind of emblematic of just how sad and silly the Democratic Party is. But we do want to give people the opportunity, if they, Colin, if you want to, I guess, explain how this is going to work, if people want
Yeah, Colin. I mean, he said to me something in the chat. Yeah.
to,
Okay.
whether you're a YouTube member or a patron, how this would work.
Yeah.
As far as oh yeah, so if you're a YouTube member or Patreon member, you should see a post now if you go to the feed with a link to the Zoom meeting, and you'll be able to join that. And then once you're in, you just over the reaction button at the bottom, just raise your hand, and that will put you in queue and allow us to go whoever was first to last and take member calls.
Okay, so but I have to start meeting? Like, that's what I don't understand. Are you in there?
I thought I am, unless you're in here and I don't see you.
I don't know where I am. So I didn't start it.
Hit the start meeting then, and then
let's see what happens.
All right, everything didn't shut down, so that's a good start.
We haven't we're waiting. Let's see what happens. And it just says, okay, click audio.
Well, you got a black screen over your face, or half your face, 3/4 of your face.
Yeah, just make sure not to use your video on it. Just press no video or audio.
So I do, yeah, so I have no video. Okay.
But I'm still here, guys.
All right. So what do I do? I'm in there. I don't see anything though.
If you're in here, oh weird, I don't see you in here. So
it's asking me to launch meet, and now I feel like I'm in there twice. What am I in? I'm in Zoom Workplace. I don't know that I'm capable of this. No, I'm very serious. I'm being very serious. I don't know that I'm capable.
It should be fine. The only thing I got to figure out is which meeting to be in, because I should be able to handle it without you. In the meantime, you should
doing live.
What do I do? All right, should I get out of it then? All right, I have an idea.
Yeah, go ahead and leave it then.
Okay.
Jen, you're usually good at figuring this stuff out.
No, I'm not. I don't know what makes you think that. In what universe? Now I don't even know how to come back. I don't know how to get myself back.
Okay, my room is the correct one because we already got someone in here, so you can just close out of that and then try and get your video working here again.
All right, now I cannot be responsible for these kinds of things. I just cannot be responsible for this.
Do I have to take over?
Don't make me come in there.
I mean, I would offer to help, but I don't know how much I can do. I think it's just you and I now, Colin.
Yes, right now.
What would I be doing? What can I do on my end, for future reference? If
it looks like it worked fine, so it looks like you guys don't have to do anything on your guys' end because there's someone waiting in the queue. So I have the right link, and it seems people can join it.
All right, so Jen could be able to come back in, or how's that going to work?
Yeah, she might need to restart her camera.
All right, I'm gonna go figure this out. You could see if you could get I don't know what to do, and I also don't know if I'm in the Zoom. I don't feel like I'm in a Zoom. I don't know what Zoom you're in, but why it's not coming up as one of my meetings is interesting.
It should be fine. That shouldn't be too much of an issue.
All right, so I need to redo my camera. All right.
Yeah.
That's all there is to it. Be interesting to see who's waiting in the queue. We've got at least. Does it show you how many people are waiting?
Just one right now. We got Donald James waiting.
Ah, there we go. And I think Brett said he wanted to call in, so got a couple there.
Yeah, like I said, if you're a YouTube member, just go check the community tab over on Revolutionary Change YouTube. And if you're a Patreon member, same thing, just check the feed over on Revolutionary Change.
And if this type of entertainment interests you, make sure that you do go over to patreon.com/revolutionary change. For as little as $5 a month, you could become a supporter of our small but mighty and growing channel, but also gives you the opportunity to call in on our monthly call-in show. It's going to be monthly to start. We'll see how that evolves over time. That can certainly change. We could potentially have more nights, depending on how it goes. And we'll see. We want to have as much interaction with our audience as we can. Obviously, if you're a paying member, we want to try to give you as much relevant opportunity with our channel as possible. I know a lot of times that's not always the case with other channels. But as I've said, as we've said many times before, we're extremely appreciative and grateful for all of the support that you guys have provided to help us get to this point, which is a rapidly growing channel, which is great. We obviously want to sustain it. We want to exceed where we're currently at and go even higher, of course. And so this gives people an opportunity to call in, share their thoughts about the relevant topics of the day, things that we've been covering, things that might be on your mind. And obviously we will do our very best, to make sure that the conversation is that it flows well, that it's relevant, and that people enjoy it. And so certainly if some people are going to start off small, but then we grow up, and then we have more people that are calling in, obviously that's going to help. There's Jen.
I give up. I give up on the studio computer. I give up. It is on my laptop in the studio.
It's still a good laptop and a good camera, so it works out.
It's okay. It's not ideal, but I will. Let me unblur myself. That might help.
Well, if it's once a month, then obviously it's not such a bad deal.
Well, and I'm not necessarily gonna be here in like next month. I don't know.
Geez, how quickly are you trying to get out of Dodge?
Oh my God. I can't, as soon as Graham's at school. Are you kidding me? I cannot be down here anymore.
It's also very hot down there too.
Yeah, it's disgusting.
Okay, and as a reminder, once you're inside the Zoom, at the very bottom, there's a reactions button. Just click that, and then click raise hand, and that's what puts you essentially in a queue to take your call. But yeah, just let me know when you guys are ready, and we should be good to go.
Okay, so Peter, do you see what he's talking about? What you're doing?
No, I'm handling that.
Okay, so just let me know what to do, man. I'm so challenged. I'm challenged and high, and I've been dealing with a dog in bad shape, and I'm not in a good way.
Well, I'm sorry to hear about that.
It's not, yeah. So.
All right, so what's the deal? Are we getting no. Travers, stop talking gibberish. Donald James says he can't hear Colin in the Zoom room. That's what he's saying.
Yeah, I'm muted in the Zoom room.
Okay.
I don't see the Zoom room.
Well, they should hear me via this exchange we're having right now, but other than that.
Okay.
Let's see how long we can keep our audience together.
I honestly think we should just do things, like do a live, because we could just sit here and wait and not figure it out. Because I honestly do not understand how we're using my Zoom, but yet I'm not in a Zoom meeting or controlling a Zoom meeting. I don't see anything in the Zoom, and yet somehow there's a Zoom. So
If you want to control it, I can send you a link. Maybe.
No. Oh no! I don't want to control it.
Are we able to get Donald in here to chat, or what's going on?
Yeah. I got it.
Okay, let's give it a shot.
Okay, here we go.
That looked like something. That was better.
It was something.
Better than nothing before. All right, what do we got here?
Donald, you can unmute if you wanted to talk or have a question.
Yeah, you guys can hear me, right?
Yes, we can. Oh my God, how cool. Colin, you rock. I'm sorry that I stupid.
Donald, on behalf of Jen and myself and everybody at the channel, you've obviously been a tremendous supporter of our channel for a while. So
yes.
First and foremost, want to say thank you for your contributions. It really means a lot.
Right on, and I agree. Colin does rock. From what I understand, he likes. I tried to refer a band to him called Oxygen Destroyer. I wonder if he remembers that.
I don't. You refer to us?
No, to Colin.
Oh no, I don't know that. No.
Sounds like a cool name. I'll give you that.
But, okay, but I don't know if he's gonna respond to that. But anyways, I love you guys, man. Love you, Jen. I supported you during your campaign run against Debbie. And yeah. And Peter, I think you're great. I really don't have much to say. I just wanted to call up and say, hey, I love you guys.
Oh, thank you. That's so nice. You know, it means more than people realize, even just anybody saying I appreciate you, because not everybody feels that way. So it's nice when people are appreciative, and it's just, yeah. So thank you for that.
You know, one of the things about campaigning against Wasserman Schultz that we found on both runs is that it can be just campaigning in general and just the whole experience. It could be very soul sucking in a lot of ways. And I'm certain that while politics in almost any corner of the United States is difficult, trying to do it in South Florida is particularly an arduous journey, to say the least. And the fact that we had incredible support from so many different people like yourself, and it wasn't a question of whether, you know, we had large donors. It was the fact that there were people on social media, even in the early stages of us starting the channel, and just people that wrote letters, that just did different things, you know, saying how much they appreciated our support, or that we were willing to go forward with what we had done as Jen as a candidate, and then just us, you know, being active in the community. That type of support makes going through the journey that much, well, nothing's easy, but it certainly makes it a lot more tolerable. And that, I think, as much as anything, is extremely important. And that's why, however much support, whether it's you, Donald, whether it's anybody else that's here, that type of support really goes a long way. And it really means a lot to us.
Yeah, that's good. I guess my first question is, are you going to run again, Jen? I think you did say in the past. I think you did say no, but I'm going to ask you directly.
Okay. No, I'm done, and not necessarily. I wouldn't say I'd never run for something ever again, but definitely not here. I don't really plan on staying in South Florida, and not for something that wouldn't be local. And it would really need to be something where I would look at that and think, I think I could help there, or that would be a good job for me, or I'd be able to bring something good to this. Because otherwise, no. Like, I don't have any ambition.
Did you feel that your campaign had any kind of momentum against Debbie?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, because it sounds like the district that she's in is really locked in for her.
It is, but I think what we were able to do, and we always talked about this, like, there's really two different campaigns you run when you're running for Congress, right? You're running this national awareness campaign, which is part of fundraising and part of getting people interested in social media and all that. And then you also are running your local campaign, which is getting voters. And it's both of those things have to happen. And I think that what we've been able to grow just from national and even international has been worth it, in a sense that I feel like we're helping build coalition and educate people. And at the end of the day, that's how we can contribute. But I think that our campaigns helped in that regard. But as far as waking people up down here, no, these people want to go down with this ship down here.
I don't know if I completely agree with that. I think that there is definitely a segment of the population that thinks just like Debbie does. There's no two ways about it. I think that they see themselves. I mean, don't forget, South Florida, and certainly over the last 2 years, has grown substantially with its Zionist population. What people may not realize is that a lot of the people that are fleeing, you know, places like Tel Aviv and Jerusalem, they're ending up in South Florida. That's one of the most popular destinations, Little Israel, as Jen likes to call it. And when you have that sort of, you know, contingent of people that are going to come to an area where they basically will dominate economically, especially, they don't want it to change. And then you think about the parts of the district in places like Hollywood and Dania and, you know, parts of Pembroke Pines, parts of Plantation, that really need the help and really need a change. They're not going to get it for two reasons. The first one is the people with all the money and all the power really are just, it's a means to an end relationship with Wasserman Schultz. I mean, we know people that can't stand her, but they'll do business with her. Like, that's part of the trade-off of being a congressman.
Yeah.
And And then the other aspect I was just going to mention is that we've been there in the communities that desperately needed help. And what Wasserman Schultz will do is effectively threaten them to keep them in line from ever thinking about going elsewhere.
Yeah, she's a bully. I mean, she keeps people in line. She does things like blackmails people and does stuff. She does. Like, there's definitely seedy crap. Ironically, where I'm looking to relocate to is actually Marjorie Taylor Greene's district. And no, there is not a chance I would ever run against her. So there's that. I would also point out that her district looks really good. Like, if you drive around her district, you don't necessarily think, oh my God, I cannot believe somebody ever represents these people. Whereas I could drive you through places in our district here that you cannot believe that somebody represents these people.
Yeah.
So there's that aspect of it. You know what I'm saying? And the reason that I like where that district is because I like being around those people more than the people down here. I just do.
Okay. Okay, last question. Oh, go ahead, Peter.
No, I was just going to say that, you can't judge a book by its cover. Some districts are going to be very reflective in the people that are there, but not necessarily of their leadership. I would definitely say that the 25th Congressional District, which represents a majority, or no, it actually represents all of southern Broward County, Florida. I would say probably half the district is reflective of Wasserman Schultz, and the other half is not.
But the people that vote and are active are that. And again, this is also a class thing.
Yes, 100%. It's definitely a class thing.
Yeah.
And for the working and underclass that are not served, it's a bigger problem.
Gated communities, like you guys said, gated communities. Yeah.
A lot of gated.
Okay. Last question, I suppose, and then I'll get off because I'm sure there's other people. Do you guys predict a blue wave in 2026? Because it seems like that's where No. It seems like that's where it's kind of the momentum. That's where it's headed. It seems like, but it seems that always happens in this country. Like, it's a swing country. Like, it always goes back and forth. But it never progresses. It never progresses.
Yeah, I think that's been true. And I think we're seeing it sort of like fade away and peter out. Like, I don't think it's going to continue. Like, yes, there will be people that are blue in certain places. Like, you're going to always have, the blue in California or wherever. You're going to still have blue. But I don't think that you're going to ever see enough of it again where it will be in control in any meaningful way, either in Congress or in the executive. So I just think we're going to start seeing them wane away and sort of wean. They're going to go away because people are leaving them in droves. And I just don't see how you can keep winning when people keep leaving you. The reason they're leaving them is they don't like them. We don't need new Coke. There's no point to them. And so I think that's the key thing, is that there's nothing that's going to be there to keep them. There's not enough white elitist, libs to keep that being competitive enough in any real big place. So that's my thought.
What I would say to that is the way that there would be a blue wave next year is if there is a slew of Mamdanis, if you will, that are the nominees in a lot of competitive districts. But what we've learned and will continue to see, which is why the Democratic Party needs to fall, is that now that somebody like Zohran has broken through, anyone that even attempts to run a similar type of campaign, now the Democratic Party is going to have their ears perked up, and they are going to go to town in those primaries to make sure that whoever is not running a Zohran-like campaign is the person who's going to get all the money and all the infrastructure, and they'll get everybody in line. It could be the unions, it could be just the normie Dems. That's the thing you have to look out for. Now, what I will say in lieu of what could potentially happen, especially with somebody like Zohran, is that I do think that some of the more, not necessarily major cities, but some of the smaller liberal cities throughout the country, like a city like Denver, for example, like a city like Denver, which is big but not too big, is kind of ripe for that type of leadership. The same could be true of maybe Prescott, Arizona. I'm thinking out loud in terms of
It's
where
Prescott.
Prescott, excuse me.
And
Of where-
Rachel's watching, so I have to correct that.
in terms of places where you could potentially see that. But if you're going to have, the Kamala Harris, Pete Buttigieg, standard bearer Democrat that's running for Congress, some of them are going to break through. But in terms of it being a wave, not a chance in hell.
It's not going to change anything at any. It's not going to change anything at any level to meaningfully help at a national level people's lives. That it's not going to do anything to further the revolution.
Because Donald, and to everybody listening,
Okay,
what you have to remember is that if you look at the Democratic Party when they were just in power with Biden, and you had the infrastructure bill and the Build Back Better bill, what you basically saw is a lot of the same that you're now going to see in this new big, beautiful bill, where there could potentially be some good benefit here and there, but overwhelmingly it's a shit bill. And it's going to only help, as all of these major bills do, the people at the very top. And
For
until
the big, beautiful people.
Exactly. So we have to rectify that reality. Until then,
right?
I don't see it happen.
Yeah. All right.
I guess when I was saying blue wave, I guess I was meaning like more Mom Donnies.
Hopefully,
I guess that's what I meant.
Hopefully,
you know what I mean,
hopefully, but I think that can also
hopefully
that can look like a lot of.
It's got to happen.
Yeah,
it's got to be eventually. It's got to come down to the voters.
I think it will, but it'll look a little bit different.
Mom Donnie is going to get all this money, thrown at him against him.
Oh yeah.
And a place like New York, they've proven that they can beat big money campaigns. Progressives can beat big money campaigns. So that has to spread out, in my opinion, throughout the rest of the country, where people are not susceptible to that kind of big money campaign propaganda. You know what I mean?
Couldn't agree more.
I hope so.
Because revolution is good and stuff. Like, I understand you got to do it like hands-on stuff like that, but ultimately, in my opinion, the best way to get any kind of political power is electorally. That's how you get political. That's the quickest, safest way to get political power.
I mean, in theory, I think so. We keep banging our heads against the wall in anything at the federal level. So I think that's the problem. I do think that in certain communities that there is an opportunity, and I'm hopeful that Zohran, that his win will be inspiring to people in communities, because at the end of the day, we need to be moving to smaller communities. So the idea of electoral politics, I think it matters. But if I'm looking at a community in a future that involves small, sustainable communities, then I'm not so worried about what's going on in Washington. You know what I mean? And this is where we need to be. And I think that people like him hopefully will inspire that in other places. So here's hoping.
Okay.
Here's hoping.
I'm sorry if it sounds like I'm yelling into the mic.
Oh, no.
No, it's all good. Thank you for calling in, being our very first call.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. I love you guys. I'll see you guys.
Thank you.
See you guys.
Appreciate you, Donald. Thank you so much. All right, Colin, do we have another caller?
Feel like
Next up, Jamie, if you could unmute, you're up next.
Hello, is this Jamie?
Yes.
Hi.
Hi, Jen. Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can
Hi,
hear
Jen.
you.
Hi, Peter.
Hi, Jamie. Nice to
Jen,
meet you.
I first came across, hey, absolutely. So likewise. I came across you vaguely in when you first ran, and when you made the podcast rounds this time around, the name rang a bell, and I was so glad to see you again. But Peter, I'm sorry if I have not seen your work or not familiar with you at all, but I'll definitely check that out. I absolutely just joined, and I'll keep following. But Jen, I know you've spoken at length, especially with Crystal, about how you've mustered the strength to reach the point where you are. So I'm familiar with that, but in context of where I'm coming from, I'll still pose the question of how do you gather the courage and the strength to do what you do? Because as a Jewish American myself, a little bit of context, if I can spend 30 seconds, formerly a Hasidic, where I grew up in Brooklyn, not inundated with Zionism as like the modern Orthodox or yourself, or however when I left the faith, I made Aliyah. I spent 2 years living in the settlements. I was completely immersed in the culture. I was in my mid-20s. I didn't have to join, but I was trying to joined the IDF, but I was rejected for my age, and then I came back to the States. And I'm currently active duty serving in the military. So putting all that in context, I have so many different parts of my life where it would be extremely courageous, but terrifying for me to even speak up publicly, let alone get involved in action. So I would still pose the question again, even though you've explained it ad nauseum, of how do you muster the courage of being part of any sort of Jewish community, especially one that is so deeply entrenched in Zionism, and still be able to have the courage of potentially lose the context you've had, family you've had, I mean, so on and so forth.
Yeah, I mean, the way I've looked at it really is anybody who is not in my life right now because of their support of Israel. These are people that, quite honestly, they never really belonged in my life in the first place. Like, there's that aspect of it for me. Like, somebody that is willing to stop talking to me because of their support of a genocidal Nazi regime. You know, at the end of the day, I find it kind of ironic that I'm the one that you're asking, like, how am I courageous to stand up and say what I'm saying? Whereas to me, it's like, how are these people so courageous to brazenly support genocide? And they're the person who's not speaking to me. So I just sort of more look at it in the sense that I'm not speaking to them. Like these are people that anybody at this point, and I've said it on this show a ton of times, like, if you support the Zionist state of Israel, you are just not someone that you can be like. I don't want those people in my life. I don't want you in my life. I'm not interested in having you in my life. And yeah, it's definitely a much thinner herd. I'm not going to lie. It has definitely thinned the herd significantly.
Jen, can you share with Jamie and the audience what it's like dealing with, whether it be a former friend or a family member, and what their kind of attitude is, not just regarding Israel, but the overall genocide of the Palestinian people, like what their disposition generally is?
You mean how we're taught, like what, like white?
No, more like what it's like today, like how they are aware of your platform and what you've been saying and how they've looked at it. Is it like a reflection of, an inflection point for them, or is it how dare you do such a thing?
You know what, and here's the thing, as the person who oversees social media, you probably know the answer to this better than me. There's probably people from that world, from my life growing up down here, that have come on and said certain things. We have the one guy, the woman's husband that I'm from, we've had that before, where people have come on and made their, ridiculous Zio comments. But that stuff doesn't bother me. Like, I don't care what again, and I've said this many, many times, other than myself, the only two people that I care what they think of me are my boys. That's it. Everybody else, it's like, if you like me, great. If you don't like me, that's cool too. Like, I don't really care. And anybody that supports the Zio state is just not anyone I want in my life. So that's where we are. So I just, right now, I'm kind of comfortable in my small little bubble.
Jamie, thank you for your service, first and foremost. What has been your experience like dealing with family and friends as you have found a way out of this, form of political and religious ideology?
Well, I would say that I know that saying that I'm a coward is hyperbolic, but along those lines, I have had conversations. And October 7th, on October 7th, on the 7th, on Shabbat morning, I was with a friend who is an outspoken Zionist, and the conversation started, as they would say, when the bodies were still warm, right? That Saturday morning is when I foresaw that the genocide, and he, of course, dismissed it out of hand, and I've since fallen out with him. And I have So one-on-one, yes, I have not. If anybody wanted to initiate a conversation, I did not hold back. And if that cost me the relationship, or if that cost me um, anything, I wouldn't hold back, and I would caution them when they would try to engage, especially being in the military, as though I'm just a standard rank and file a service member, so there's nothing that I know more than anyone else knows in the news. But they would ask me questions about those things, and since October 7th, I have spent many months overseas, so they would ask those questions, and every time they would initiate the conversation, I would caution them that you might not appreciate what I say, you might not agree with what I say, but I'm not going to hold back. So just so you're aware that I'm our friendship or our relationship is not going to hold me. It's not going to keep me from voicing my disgust, my opinion, and so on. So I have lost some contacts. I've lost some friends, and I've not stepped down from that. But publicly, being in the military, not being able to speak up against current policy, whether it's current policy, whatever is current, whether it was previous administration or current administration, which personally I was disgusted by both. And yeah, I didn't vote for either because I was overseas, but I did not lose any sleep for not having voted for either. So yeah, that has been my experience over the last damn near 2 years now.
So you were not able to get into the IDF, but you were able to get into the U.S. Army. Was there anything in particular that they rejected you over? I mean, I find that interesting because I thought the IDF wants as many people as possible in their military.
So I was married at the time when I made Aliyah, so I got an automatic automatic exemption. So I needed to submit an essay and submit a request to void that exemption. And not being Israeli, I did not. I took no for an answer. And in Israel, if you say no, someone else says yes, and you go back and forth until you get what you want. But I was I was essentially not cultural enough to understand that a no doesn't mean no. So as soon as they rejected it, I accepted it, came back to the States, and joined shortly thereafter.
That's amazing to me. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that you, I mean, I'm glad that you ended up not serving in the, in the IDF, but, I don't know how much you follow us, but the way that I feel our service people are used, abused, and disposed of, really is something that I've always been very loud about. And it's beyond frustrating to me that people are still willing to participate. And I know why. It's like, that's the jobs program.
Yeah.
Yeah, likewise. I am very glad that I did not. I'm sorry.
That's a doorbell. And I also think that a lot of times you have to wrestle with those realities about, wanting to serve your country, but at the same time, knowing what your country is doing is wrong. And while I don't think that that's how it's going to end for Israel, because I do believe, as Jen has pointed out time and again, that it's not the leadership that currently runs Israel. The people that are there is very reflective in that very radical far-right ideology. So most people probably will go down with the ship, if you will. What I think is the big change is here in the States. I do think that the narrative amongst the American people, and especially with those that are in MAGA, and how there really is this sort of political civil war over Israel right now, I don't see that ending in favor of the pro-Israel crowd. I actually think that the America First crowd is going to win out. And I do think that there is this changing of the guard when it comes to the state of Israel. I don't know when it's going to happen. I certainly hope it happens sooner rather than later. But it is going to happen. As we've said time and again on our channel, that cat is not getting put back in the bag again, not just because of the genocide, but because of the incredible amounts of money that we give to Israel. And with that money, Israel enjoys a very progressive, safe, and even sort of upper middle class type lifestyle that includes education, healthcare, jobs, etc. And we play a huge role in that. And I do believe that that is a substantial change that is coming, where we're just not going to be a part of that anymore. That change is going to happen. I truly believe that.
So, sorry, I had to mute myself there. I was going to answer to answer your question. I am glad, very glad that I did not join the IDF. I wanted to do it as a career, and I'm doing it currently. I'm more than 10 years in here in the States, and I would like to finish my career. However, I have fallen out of love with the mission, and so yes, I'm grateful to have not joined the IDF. Still believe in the overall, still believe in America. I am, yes, I'm patriotic, but that of course wasn't in the forefront. Most people join, not, I wouldn't say most, but too many people join the service today because of their economic plight, essentially, and guaranteed paycheck healthcare and so on. We can talk about that as well another time. Why the DoD doesn't are one of those components that don't want to push for progress across the civilian spectrum, because recruiting would go down if you offer them free college and free healthcare. But that's for another day. But essentially, yes, I do want to finish my career here. I still believe in our values, and presidents come and go. Hopefully, we don't. Well, our command not to I don't want in a public forum, so not to get too political on Commander in Chief, but and just to quote him that he doesn't necessarily rule out running for a third term, but assuming that the Constitution holds, presidents do come and go, and I've served under 3 different presidents, none to be extremely proud of, but some more than others. But it's still every day it gets a little harder. Being in a bunker in October in the Middle East, while 2 countries were essentially like fodder for whatever we're supporting there, from one country to the other, from Iran to Israel in October. Asking myself, well, why am I here, and why are we supporting this? And at the bare minimum, if the 2 want to fight, that's one thing, let alone that we should actively try to stop that and not support it with our taxpayer dollars, and morally, legally, financially, economically, and so on. But as much as I want to finish another 10 years, it does get harder every day to put the uniform on and be proud of the current mission, at least.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, it's interesting you say you've served under 3 presidents. I would like to point out that not one of those people ever served. And I think that is one of the bigger problems that we've talked about it on here before. And while I am by no means a rah-rah team USA military person, I'm not. Like, I care about all peoples and their freedom and their, and justice. But it does bother me that we've had so many presidents that are commanders in chief that have never served in the armed forces. I find that very questionable. And I would suggest the last time that we had somebody who did in that capacity was the last time we ever had any diplomacy and restraint, and didn't automatically just go guns blazing. So that's what I have noticed.
HW, yeah.
That was the last time.
Yeah. We don't count George W. Bush's service. That doesn't count.
No, don't be ridiculous.
No, he had Club Med for a few weekends, and they called that military service, which was something.
Well, stay safe, and like
really
I
appreciate you calling in, Jamie.
Thank
really,
you.
And despite what other people may think, there is a huge difference between supporting the military and supporting the military-industrial complex, and don't let anybody tell you otherwise.
Oh, 100%.
Appreciate you.
Yeah. Well, last point I'll make, that only one of the 3. Yeah, thank you. Just last point, only one of the 3 did have an opportunity to be drafted in. Again, not to get too caught up in that, but definitely, I guess, a doctor's note and some bone spurs. May have kept them from getting. But yeah, not to get caught up in that, because I do have a commander in chief to abide by. But yes, thank you for taking the call, and I'm really glad I joined in. Keep doing what you're doing, and Peter, I'll look more into you, because I'm sure that if Jen partnered with you, there's something to follow. So
well, he's been,
have a good
just
night.
so you know, he's been my partner since the beginning. He was my partner when I ran for Congress the first time. He's been in charge of my social media always. So he's always, everything that you've seen of me is also him.
I have some value that I bring to the table, so I'll take credit where I can get it. Thanks again, Jamie. Really appreciate you calling in. Who do we got, Colin?
Next up, we have Sam. Sam, if you want to unmute.
Hi. I just have like two questions. First question is, I remember I saw an interview or like maybe a speech from Bernie Sanders, and he said that he knows that amongst some of his congressmen, they're heartbroken with what's going on with Gaza, even though they still vote for Israel. And I'm just wondering, like, do you have any insight, like how prevalent is this amongst people in Congress, where, like, you know, through rumor, they know that what they're doing is wrong, but they're still doing what they're still voting for certain things. My second question is more about in general, like, some of us need to start thinking about an accountability framework. You know, obviously Biden is pretty old, but people like Kamala, like CEOs of Microsoft, CEOs of Palantir, that guy's a real, like, something. That Palantir guy. Yeah. So like, and I remember, like, I don't know, maybe a year ago, there was some group, I think a Palestinian American group that was trying to sue the government for violations of the Leahy law, but it was thrown out because I think it was something called like political. It was a political question doctrine or something like that. And so that's really discouraging, because, like, there's got to be some way for the citizens to, like, intervene when some law is broken. American law, not some international. I'm just talking about, like, an American law, the Leahy law, right?
So you're talking about like a citizen's arrest type of a situation?
No, not like a vigilante thing, but like what is the way forward? Because it's like we're in a holding pattern.
Yeah.
Like, how
We are.
You're talking about getting accountability and how that will happen. We've spoken about it a couple of times. We spoke about it a little bit with Steve Donziger a couple of weeks ago. You know, this is really what is hanging sort of in the balance right now, is the fact that there is no respect for international law, that the UN doesn't really seem to have any real gumption to override and do anything in such a way to bring accountability. So while you see a lawsuit being brought in the Court of Justice, and you see arrest warrants being issued by the International Criminal Court, I don't know that anything will ever really come of those things. I think that the accountability is going to come from our economic voices and where people are going to fail. I mean, Israel's done. They're done. And I'll also address the first question about, like, members of Congress or whatever and how they feel. My thought is, I don't really care. If you have voted, if you are sitting in our house and you have voted to authorize spending to Israel, you are complicit in a genocide. And whether or not that haunts you, that's between you and you, right? Like, I mean, kind of good. It should haunt you. And if you feel bad about it, good. But that just shows that you're a coward and not a psychopath. So I think that's the key difference, because at the end of the day, if you feel like you're contributing to a genocide and yet you don't have the strength to stand up and do something about it, then you ought not be in that house. That's the whole point of the people in that house. The people in the house are supposed to be the people that have certain courage to stand up and fight for the people. That's why it's called the People's House. So we are so far from that.
And Sam, we've also talked at length about why people get so caught up in how they're so offended by Trump and they can't stand him. And all I've been telling people for the longest time is that, with rare, and I mean rare exceptions, Trump just does exactly what everybody else is doing. It just so happens that he is under the biggest microscope that any politician has ever been under, that every little thing he does it does not go unnoticed. It gets plastered all over the news at all times. Plus, he's also a major ratings draw, so they're going to do that anyway. Huh. But the fact that we have a Congress that, with rare exceptions, even people that they think that they like, with rare exceptions, we have a Congress that openly and brazenly engages in federal crimes every day by doing insider trading. And it's so obvious that they're doing it, and they're doing it at such a scale that the devil woman that Jen ran against, she was the highest insider trader, like the #1 insider trader in the Democratic Party in 2 of the last 3 congressional sessions over the last 6 years. When that happens, you can't expect anybody with a rational brain to look at the Trump situation and think, oh, if we only got rid of Donald, everything would be okay.
Right.
No, what he's effectively done is he's exposed the entire rot of the system. And as Jen has constantly liked to point out, he is going to accelerate as much as facilitate the revolution, because he's not going to stop. We are just getting started. He's only 6 months in, and you wait 2 years from now when he starts totally floating this idea of, maybe a third term might be a really great idea. It's, FDR had 3+ terms. Maybe I could get one. He will dance on that needle if he can get away with it. There's no question he will. And the reason he's able to get away with it is because the system is rotten to its core, and we need a new path. That's a fact.
Yeah. Did we answer the questions? Sometimes I get off.
Yeah. And by the way, the impressions are great, Peter. So keep it up.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Sam.
Thank you so much for your support, Sam.
Appreciate you.
Colin, what do we got? We'll take a couple more before we get through the first hour.
Next up, we got they just have 71 Pan. If you want to unmute and ask a question.
Sure. Hi, Jen. Hi, Peter. How you guys doing today?
Hi, good. Nice to hear from you.
Yes. This is so great. You guys are doing the Zoom live. Yes, and I recommended the call in as a way to engage people, right?
Yeah.
I noticed that you guys used to go. Your show used to be called Generation Change. Now it's called Revolutionary Change. Why the change? Out of curiosity.
Jen, you got one. That's all you, Jen.
Yeah. Okay. So a variety of reasons. But one of the things is that the main reason is that what it represents is much more akin to where my mindset is and where my politics are than where we first started. So we were generational change for 5 years. And our t-shirts are "Here Comes the Sun" with the sunrise, and isn't that all, and with the mission of transforming politics into service. And while I do believe politics is supposed to be service, that is no longer my mission. I am much more on an outside of the political sphere revolutionary mission. And this is not going to happen no matter how many different types of progressive Dems we sneak in to Congress. So I just feel like I've had a change of mission, a change of priority. And I've gone so much further to the left, probably further than Peter would have ever liked. But, I actually just needed the change to reflect where I'm at. So I know you shouldn't. And that's why. And then also a friend of the show, Jordan Sheraton, has been sort of harping on the fact that one of the reasons we didn't get bigger, faster, and have as many people is because the name of the show was generational with a J, and that's not a normal word. And so, And so that was always sort of stuck with me, and maybe that is it. So I thought at least using a real word would make it easier for people to find us. So there was a variety of factors, but yeah.
There's also something to be said for what's going on in Gaza and how that became a primary focal point of the channel because of just how brazenly obvious it was that this was a genocide from the beginning. In fact, Jen was on it from day one. We still have a pinned TikTok that we have not changed and are not going to change. It dropped on October 10th, 2023, where Jen basically foretold exactly what was going to happen. And it ended up going viral as a result. And I think ever since then, we've realized that, there's a lot of critical topics that we talk about and will continue to talk about on a regular basis. But the framing has to continue to be Gaza and the Palestinian genocide, because it's all connected to so many of the things we talked about for so long. What happened in Yemen, what happened in Syria, what happened in Libya, what happened in Iraq, what is happening here at home, and why it's happening here, how our government has been completely captured by corporate special interests, and that's why they're able to get away with what they've been able to get away with. And so until we deal with the infrastructural problem that is our country, nothing's going to change. And that's why.
Yeah, I was just going to, before I forget, I think also just more of this thought process of that this is really a class war.
Yeah.
And that my thought on this has gotten way more global. And very quickly, before you finish, Tony D, Here Comes the Sun is most always certainly a reference to the Beatles. And if anybody were to ever ask me, am I a John girl or a Paul girl? The answer is always the same. I'm a George girl. So I'm a George girl. And so Here Comes the Sun is most definitely a Beatles reference. But yeah, anywho.
Yeah. And,
So
speaking
that's.
about,
No,
yeah,
please.
I didn't want to interrupt. Yeah, so, speaking about it, right? Because I know, Jen, in the past, when you ran for Congress, I think twice, you had reparations on your platform, reparations for, American freedmen of chattel slavery. That doesn't change. You still believe in reparations, right? Because I understand you had to talk about Gaza, Palestine, because from my experience when I worked with the Green Party last year on Dr. Joe Stein's campaign in Bootsware, I could tell you that there was a lot of division between Black Americans fighting for reparations on Joe Stein's team and Bootsware and Joe Stein focusing, hey, we can't leave immigrants out. We have to be compassionate. And that's why I disagree with the Green Party on. Because if we look at it historically, right, Black Americans did a lot of fighting. They fought for everybody to come to this country, right? And not only they just fought for everybody, but they also fought for everybody to get equal rights. But since because a lot of Palestinians are getting, are getting like some form of civil rights, Hispanics, Asians, Jewish people, and now Black Americans feel like they're being left out. So in other words, Black Americans are like the last group of people to have their needs met, and first group of people fighting the battle every day. And Black Americans are just getting tired of fighting for everybody else without reciprocity. And so speaking about it, I know like in my community, Asian community, there's a lot of division too, right? Because Asian people know that without Black Americans, there won't be a country at all. Without America, America will not exist. And so my thing is this, right? I've told like people in the Green Party that look, I understand immigrations are very important, but we also need to focus at home, especially Black Americans, because by telling Black American activists that, hey, you gotta focus on immigration and migration issues, like saying that, hey, your issues need to get pushed on the side, or it's like taking the oxygen away from Black Americans. And so Black Americans are very don't trust the third parties anymore. And I brought this attention to Dr. Joe Stein, and I got silenced by her when I told that on immigration, we're going to have to take a moderate stance on immigration. Like, in other words, we need to control the borders because when we focus too much on immigration, right, it distracts us from focusing on the issues um at home. And I know Peter, you and I probably agree on like immigration that we need border control. I know Jill, I mean Jen, I know you're for
I'm
like
much
open
more.
borders.
I'm much more conservative on immigration than Jen is, but
I am a more the merrier person. So no, I my thoughts on reparations are very, very basic. Okay.
Hmm.
When you owe a debt, you pay your debt. It's really not complicated. We know how much
Right,
money it
it's
is.
not.
It has been figured it out. I know that it's figured out. Pay your bills. Okay, first and
Hmm.
foremost. And that really is very specifically for American descendants of slaves, whatever the acronym is. I don't recall right now, but that is a
Right.
very specific thing that needs to happen. And I do believe that none of us are free until all of us are free. And that includes those reparations. So just because right now the current focus is on the Holocaust going on in Palestine does not mean that I think that we fix that problem, that we're good if we don't pay our debt. Like that doesn't work either. So, but all of these things are very intertwined. And as far as like the immigration thing, I am really tired of people being convinced to punch down, kick down. Okay. It's all of the people, whether it's ADOS whether it's Caribbean Black people, whether it's Asian people, whether it's immigrants, we all have this, there's all the same oppressor. It's all the same oppressor. And as long as they can keep everybody fighting amongst themselves and kicking down, then you're right. That's the distraction. Immigration is the distraction. I don't support the border wall. I never supported the border wall because I'm a person of reason. And as a person of reason, I look at evidence. I look at facts. And facts are that the majority, vast majority of people that are in this country illegally don't come across the border that way. That's not how it works. So it's not a matter of that. And also, as we're going to see, the intertwinedness between the corporations that control this country and things like big ag, and the amount of people that are illegally here, but we need them because we can abuse them more than our own workers. That all of that is so disgusting that we're even talking about, oh, should people allowed to come here to be abused or not? So we're so far off. You see what I'm saying? Like in terms of how we treat people.
Yeah, I understand. However, because Black Americans don't benefit from immigration, from my experience, because I'm an Asian guy, I could tell you, Asian, and I try to be as reasonable as much as possible with Asians, Hispanics, and other immigrant groups. But the reality is that when the immigrants, Asians, and Hispanics move into Black American communities, those areas get gentrified by immigrants because immigrants tend to 9 or 10 times hire their own people and replace Black Americans with immigrant workers. And so you can understand why Black Americans say that immigration does not benefit their communities, because immigrants are going to gentrify Black American
But who's
communities.
creating that? But who, see, here's the thing. Okay, right. So
Right.
the problem
I
is
understand.
how it's allowed. The problem isn't the people. Everybody's just trying to live a decent life. What I'm saying is, just like I don't look at the money like it's a pie. None of this is an either or thing. If people are going to get gentrified, they're going to get gentrified, whether it's being gentrified from the Israelis that are moving in, or it's gentrified from a whole bunch of white people that are already here and wanting to make money on higher ground.
Well, right. But what I'm saying is that in immigrant communities, there are a lot of immigrants who are on city council, who are mayors, who are state senators. They're the ones who are actually trying to find Black American communities out. And not only that, but most immigrants, not all of them, let me be clear, most immigrants practice anti-Black racism every day in Black American communities. And I could tell you that with Asian people, Hispanics. So that's why. And I'm not saying that Black Americans say, hey, we still have immigration. What they want is legal immigration. Legal immigration means when immigrants cross the border, they got to have paperwork, make sure they have the documents ready before crossing the border. Like, it's like when we get a job, right? They ask us for I-9 form to make sure we're legal, make sure that, we're not doing anything crazy. So how is that different from illegal immigrants saying that they're more deserving, when the illegal immigrants know already by crossing the border, they're going to have to submit paperwork? And also because under Joe Biden, he did not control the border very well. I mean, a lot of things to go unchecked.
But
which Peter and I,
Pat, if I could share my
agree on.
Yeah, it's just on purpose. It's by design. That's the point. But yeah, Peter can clarify much further.
So I can clarify a couple of things for you. So there's many layers to what you're talking about, which I think is fair. I think that the Asian community unfortunately gets unfairly dragged into this because of the communities that you're raised in, where there is certain types of values that you're brought up with, especially when it comes to education. And there is this sort of, well, you're doing too well, so now we have to bring other people on, into the fold, if you will, and you need to suffer as a result of other people not being able to, keep up, so to speak. But there's a lot of layers to that. The first layer that I can definitely attest to, especially with illegal immigration, has everything to do with multinational corporations and even wealthy entrepreneurs who don't want to pay shit. They don't want to pay anything. Right. In fact, they would rather you just be a slave if they could get away with it. And I know this because, and I'm only going to say so much about it, but I know of a specific job recently where one of the guys was picked up by ICE. And why was that? Because he was an illegal immigrant in this country who was getting paid basically a shit wage by an entrepreneur who didn't want to pay somebody a living wage. That's what happened. And so you've got two things here. You've got a person who was in the country illegally, but was also trying to make enough money to survive and was being taken advantage of by a greedy capitalist who decided, why should I pay 25, 30 bucks an hour when I could pay 10 bucks an hour and make a hell of a lot more profit? And that, in essence, is the broken element of capitalism that has never been properly dealt with, which is why I've often said that the only way capitalism could ever survive is if it's counterbalanced with socialism. If it doesn't have it, it's dead. And it's already been dead for a long time. We have just continued to pretend that this system can somehow sustain itself. It can't. And so as it relates to the Black community, and an example that I would give of reparations, which I 100% support, it has been well documented since the 1960s after Kennedy's assassination, when it was obvious that the biggest reason to go into Southeast Asia was to do heroin trade here in the United States. They could get into the opium fields, to the poppy fields and everything, and bring those resources worth billions, if not trillions of dollars today back to the States. And so, of course, where do they traffic the drugs? They traffic them in Black communities that were thriving, mind you, especially Harlem.
Yes, they're thriving, right, before the drug war happened.
Exactly. Harlem was a great neighborhood in New York for a very long time. And of course, you bring in the drugs, you traffic it in those neighborhoods. They get destroyed as a result. God knows how much money, lives were ruined. Now, if you ask me, that sounds like a recipe for reparations, that the people who are from those types of communities, LA, San Francisco, New York, Chicago, where this happened, they most definitely should be compensated. So, like I said, in the end, this is a capitalism problem. And yes, I believe in the free market, but I am very well aware of why this happens and why communities end up getting pitted against each other. Because you got some fat cats that sit in a room and say, how can we screw the American people over today? I got an idea. Let's pit this community against that community, and all the while, the ones walking out with the money out of the bank. And that's how it works.
Yes, and right. And I'm just saying, because it's a Democrats' problem. The Democrats promote immigration way too much than therefore American people. When I say for American people, we're talking about like a living wage, free healthcare, free public university education, trying to American citizens, those who are here legally, right? Because the problem is that when immigrants come to this country illegally, they get the free tax benefits of in-state tuition and only been in this country for less than a year, whereas like American citizens who cross the states have to pay out-of-state tuition. So that's not very fair. And speaking about, and also like you're right, corporations want, illegal immigration to make profits, right? And the problem is corporations who are not being held accountable, in addition to illegal migrants crossing the border. And also because it has to do with the liberal Karens who want illegal immigration because they know that Black Americans are multiplying very quickly, right? And the white race is declining very fast. And with illegal immigration, especially those coming from Ukraine, to make up for the slack in the white population in America. And what I'm just saying is that, because I even had that conversation with my own people in the community, that hey, Asians, meaning like my Asian brothers, Asian sisters, or Asian friends, hey, we're gonna have to issue cash payment reparations to American freedom title slavery, because they did a lot for this country, right? Because appreciation without substance is meaningless and is pointless in this age, we're living in right now. And a lot of the Asian immigrants who came to this country poor, they became wealthy because of Black Americans who fought for them to be in this country. And even I noticed a lot of Asian people, it's not only white people, majority of white people oppose universal health care, it's also Asians, Hispanic. They're definitely against free healthcare, free public universities, right? Because they learned it from the racist Beckys and Karens. And even I had to have that difficult conversation with Asian people, and I told them about it. And of course, I did yell at them because they couldn't see the big picture. And I'm trying to tell them, like, right now, as a warning, because right now, what we're seeing right now, right, the No Kings protest, it tells me that hey, Hispanics and Asians, don't come to Black Americans for help at all, because Black Americans are warning them, hey, we warned you guys a long time ago how this country was built, how this country was set up, right? Because Asian Hispanics did not reciprocate. And it's always Black Americans giving. So when someone gives and doesn't return, yeah, it's going to create an animosity. It's going to create issues. Because now Black Americans felt like they're being used by Asians and Hispanics. I even confronted the Asian Hispanics about it to let them know that without Black Americans, they wouldn't be where they're at, today. And that's why more Asians, Hispanics voted for Trump than they did for Kamala Harris in 2024. Even though more Black Americans voted for Trump or Oreo, they still voted for Democrats. But the main ones who voted for Trump was definitely the Beckys, Kens, Zens, and Thomas at a higher percentage.
Yeah, for sure.
And so, yeah, so it is like I said, so like I said, the only way I think we're going to win in this country is we're going to have to implement border control, because in order to fix domestic issues at home, like such as living wage, free healthcare, free public nurses, and especially reparations for American descendants of chattel slavery, and universal policies for all American citizens who are legal. And so somebody's going to have to
I think I understand like the gist of what you're saying, the importance of everybody getting here legally. I do, but we're gonna move on and take one more caller at this point.
And just to finish that out, Pan, and thank you so much for your support for the channel, and thank you so much for calling. Here's what I think is the perfect conclusion to what Pan's talking about, because it's certainly possible that he may live in a community that has been in many ways a victim of the broken capitalist system that we're facing today. If we do not address the fact that the issue isn't Asian versus Black or Black versus Hispanic, et cetera, or whites versus Blacks, the real issue here, and yes, there is plenty of prejudice to go around in this country, and no, it's not just whites, it's everybody.
Exactly.
This system creates prejudice because most people can't punch up to the level that they need to punch up to in order to make that change, which is why collectively we have to work together to recognize that it is the multinational corporations and the billionaire class that controls that entity of our system, that until we deal justly with that, these problems will not change. And so with that said, Pan, thank you so much for calling in. We hope you'll call back again in the future. And Colin, we've got one more caller we're going to take for this first go round.
Thank you so much. And you guys going to be on the call in like every week? This is like every week or every month?
This is going to be for now. It's going to be once a month. It's going to be on the first Saturday of every month. So keep that in mind going forward. And thank you so much for calling in, Pam.
Yeah, thank you so much. You guys keep at the go. Hopefully, my Mandani wins big. It's going to be a turning point. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we definitely agree on that. Colin, who's our last caller for the evening?
Last we got Brett Boyle. If you can unmute there, and then you're last.
Hello,
Mr. Mod.
Are you there?
Oh, Brett, don't crap out on us now.
if you're still there, of course. It's at the bottom left of the screen if you're having trouble finding it for the mute and unmute.
Did I get it?
There we go.
Hi.
All right. How's it going?
It's good. How are you? Nice to meet you.
Hello, hello.
Hi.
Not sure if my camera's on the right way. Possibly. But hello.
Hi.
Nice to talk to you guys.
Thank
Good
you for this.
evening. Yeah, absolutely. I love this channel and the community you guys have being built, and it's not. I love the fact that it's not the usual left versus right stuff, and it's bigger pictures and all of that jazz. It's good. Can I just clarify something I just wanted to make clear, because I was listening to the last caller, obviously.
Yeah.
Some of the language, it is important. International law and Canadian law and US domestic law indicates that somebody that crosses a border any way possible and makes an immediate claim to asylum is not doing anything illegal. And they have to be in the country to make the claim, first of all. And once that claim is made, it starts a process, and the host country that claim is made in is obligated to house them, clothe them, feed them, etc., while the claim is processed. So the in quotes, the right, I'm sorry, I know we don't talk a lot about that, but they keep wanting to say, oh, these illegals are getting free stuff. And I guess it depends on perspective, but they are not illegal if you make a claim to asylum here. It's not doing anything illegal or wrong. That's what the law says. People should look up those laws before talking about legalities. So sorry, I wanted to clear that up because the language is important in my mind.
No, it is. And I agree. I mean, we're doing this as just like letting people kind of air their thoughts and grievances. I don't necessarily feel the need to be a teachable moment, but yeah, I mean, we've talked about it on this show before that immigrants in this country that are not here legally actually contribute infinitely more into the system than they take out. They're paying taxes. They're not getting services. I always hear these sort of straw man stories about illegal immigrants coming here and getting these services. How are they getting services? What services are they getting? I know that they pay in. I know that in order, like they end up paying in under someone else's number for benefits they'll never get, but they don't get services. What services do they get? So I appreciate that comment.
This again leads to the same problem that we keep talking about, which is you're not going to hear this from Dave Rubin. You're not going to hear this from David Pakman. You're not going to hear this from Charlie Kirk. Heck, you're probably not even going to hear it from possibly even Cenk Uygur. The reality is we have a system that is designed that doesn't actually go after the real problem. You can blame illegal immigration, of which I do think is a problem, but it's not the problem. If you're not going to talk about the problem, which is multinational corporations, special interests, if you will, have captured our government, which in technical terms is fascism, because it is the merging of the corporate state and the government together, which is what's happened. That's the problem. And therein lies all of these other issues where you have this constant headbutting, and we cannot get out of our own way. Now, as you had pointed out, Brett, as others have pointed out, it would be easier if our channel was simply a gossip channel like some of the others on the left and the right. We're basically just, punching one side versus the other side. We've seen Kyle do it. We see Benny Johnson do it. And for them, it serves very well. It pays very well. But if you're not on the same mission and you're not actually trying to save this country, which is as small as we may be, I'd like to think that we're playing a small enough role that it actually is noticeable. That what we're trying to do is bring people together. We're trying to bring the working class of this nation together, of which is the overwhelming majority now. When 80% of the people who live in New York City can't afford to live, and these sons of bitches are complaining that Zohran Mamdani wants to give them a government-owned grocery store and give them public transportation for free, perhaps one day out of the whole week, and they're losing their mind, they know that the left populist ideology is the winning ideology. They can't allow an inch of it to seep into people's minds because they know if it does, they will never get it back, ever. So we have to continue to get the word out there, even if it results in our channel getting, it's obviously suppressed, maybe it gets knocked off, I don't know. But we have a goal, we have a mission, and the fact that you are a part of it as a mod in our chat is just another example of we are making a difference enough that somebody like yourself volunteers to help us. And we cannot thank you enough for that assistance. It really means a lot.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Again, I really appreciate it. I love the community being built here, and how there's a lot of willingness to have good discussion and have a bit more open minds and willingness to learn and et cetera, et cetera. It's not all about the kind of conditioned left versus right stuff and like it's better than that. It's more than that, right? So I do appreciate it. One of the things that I actually did want to talk about, if you would entertain me maybe for a moment, is it's something that's actually been bothering me for quite a while with a number of some of the streamers, such as like Katie Halper or Kim Iverson or even Mehdi, say what you will. But I think there's a lot that I know, Jen, you've touched on it before, but to me, in my mind, there's not enough emphasis being put on the fact that Hamas was actually backed by Israel. And there wouldn't be any Hamas if not but for Israel. And ethnic cleansing of Palestine started decades before there was ever any Israel-backed Hamas. And as there's, a lot of, you get the Piers Morgans, et cetera, that like they think that this all started October 7th or whatever. There's also the same kind of attitude or thinking that people believe this all kind of started with the introduction of Hamas, which it didn't. It started decades prior than that, right? So to me, I feel the mainstream is kind of being allowed to push that Hamas narrative a little bit too much without enough pushback from a lot of the, podcasters, etc., where they're not making that point that like, hey, the ethnic cleansing of Palestine started decades before Hamas, and Israel is actually the ones who brought in Hamas because Arafat and the PLO were far too popular in gaining momentum, and Israel needed that Hamas in order to create their boogeyman for demonization. Because now you look and it's just all Hamas, right? They're demonized heavily as propaganda. So I would like to see just, I know, like, I know Jen has touched on it, but that's just something I think that a lot of more people should be talking about instead of having that whole narrative that whole Hamas thing be kind of controlled by a mainstream narrative. That's something we should all be pushing about, speaking out more about. What are you guys' thoughts on that?
I mean, for sure. I mean, that's just one of many of the historical points that have been failed to be addressed, that have created the image that we have of everything that we have. Not just, I mean, everything going back to our connection with the PLO and Yasser Arafat and how they built up Hamas in Gaza and all of it. And every single one of those things is just one more thread that if you pull, it's like you can just go deeper and deeper down the rabbit hole. But at the end of the day, the problem is the Zion-Nazi state. They're the problem. Everything else has risen up as to fight against that oppression and that genocidal regime, right? So all of the things are made up stories that aren't real. So I just feel like, yeah, that is definitely one of the key points that they want to focus on Hamas, because they're actually serving the entire purpose of what Hamas was created for, which is to be the boogeyman, and nothing like mainstream corporate-owned media to keep further enhancing that. I mean, that's the whole purpose.
Yeah, I agree. And so while as I said earlier in this conversation tonight, and we will have more of these as we go forward, and obviously the calls have been great, and it couldn't be more fitting that it concludes with our super trusty mod. It takes a team. It takes a team to make this work, and we are extremely grateful to have you here, Brett. I think that the realistic goal of what we can accomplish domestically and on foreign policy is simple. Domestically, single-payer healthcare it's the singular issue, because I've spoken to enough conservatives and even libertarians who get it. We just need to make it a mainstream point and continue to be relentless about it, which is essentially the removal of the for-profit middlemen in between us and our doctors. And that's basically it. It is government funded, not government run. And it will not only save lives, it will save us $500 billion a year, and it covers everybody. So it is nonsensical to even argue any other points, because any other points people are going to argue, they're not acting in good faith. Just like the Zionists, they don't act in good faith. They know they're full of shit. They know their ideology is dying. And the only reason they give a shit, which unfortunately is another trope that's been used against Jews forever, is that they just care about the money. They care about the power and the prestige that has been afforded to the Zionist movement for the better part of 3 generations, which is unbelievable when you think about it time-wise. But this is essentially what we're dealing with now. We're dealing with people that never had to think about this. They go to CPAC, they go to all these events, and it is high society all the way. And for many people, if they're really in it, they're in it full time. all year round. You can imagine why people like Neera Tanden are motivated to act the way that they do with the Center for American Progress or the Heritage Foundation. This is a very lucrative life that these people live. They get caught up in it. And even if they know what they're doing is wrong, that life is more important to them than those brown babies out in Gaza. To them, that's just the cost of doing business in their eyes. That's how it is. So we have to continue to keep our pedal on the gas as hard as we can. And I think if we do that, we're going to get closer to being a part of what will inevitably be the disintegration of the relationship that is mutually, politically, and economically beneficial. That is the Israel-United States alliance. It is our job to break it. And I think there are enough people out there on all sides of the political spectrum that want to fight with us on that front. So let's do it.
Yeah. Thanks for helping out, Brett. Appreciate you.
Yeah, you bet. Yeah, I agree. And if I can close just by saying, I think there's just, for the being here for the past, helping you guys out for the month or whatever it's been, it feels like there's a positive attitude that you guys kind of bring that is kind of needed. I'm not going to speak for anybody else, but I can just honestly say for myself that, it feels like you guys bring some a bit of sense to the senseless, or you know what I mean? Like, it just, I think this is a great space, and you guys are doing a fantastic job, and to just keep going, because I know having the space and community here that you guys have been building, it definitely helps me a lot, and have a little bit better mental health and positive outlook. And you have, friends and community, as we've talked about, it's kind of like family here, right? So
yeah,
love it. Keep going. Very positive.
Thank you. Thanks, Brett.
Thanks, Brett.
Yeah, appreciate that. I feel like that too. We've talked about that before, about where I am on Sundays and Wednesdays is usually over at Punch Up Pod in the chat over there. And it feels like, it's a group of people to commiserate with that feel your pain.
Brett, thank you for closing us out on this first go around of what will be the Revolutionary Change call-in on the first Saturday of the month. So mark your calendars. That's how we're going to do it going forward. And Colin, if you will, take us home. We will cover a couple of stories before we call it an evening. I hope you guys all enjoyed that. I know I did. Jen, I think you enjoyed it a little bit.
Yeah, no, it's good. I'm fine as long as we're talking to people and I'm not talking to a camera, right? Like that, I'm always fine with that. I do not do well. I am not a pontificator.
We do our best, but we can play well off of others. Remember to go to patreon.com/revolutionary change if you want to be a caller on upcoming call-in streams. For as little as $5 a month, you could become a supporter of our small but mighty and growing channel. And so we really appreciate each and every one of you that are here that have participated this evening, including Noah Linden. Thank you so much for becoming a YouTube member. Really means a lot. We appreciate that. Jamie Slomick. Jamie was one of our call-ins this evening, so thank you so much. And we hope you'll stick with us. We hope you enjoyed the conversation. And yes, also to Michael Pan, who I believe is the gentleman who had called in a little while as well. Nice. So thank you so much for becoming members, and we hope you'll stick with us. It really means a lot. I'm not going to judge a person based on their screen name, but we'll say it anyway. Fart Boys for Life, $5. Thank you so much. Looking at Nurit Peled Alanan, a linguistics professor at Hebrew University, conducted extensive research and concluded that Israel school books Arabs, including Palestinians, in dehumanizing ways, primarily as primitive farmers, refugees, or terrorists, with no positive or neutral representations of Palestinian people or professionals. And we should also point out crystal clear, they are Israel occupation forces. Or Jen likes to say Israel offensive forces, but the point is still well taken.
No, occupation is fine. Occupation offensive, but I'm okay with IDF because it really stands for death force. You know what I mean? It's like they're not defensive. But, no, we collectively, I believe, in the West, and that's, you know, the white people, have been so propagandized and taught such demonic things about brown people in general, but yeah, very specifically about Arabs. The mere fact that I was taught that Palestinian wasn't a thing, that wasn't real. Palestinians aren't real. That's never been a place. Zionist talking point like 372 is that there's never been a place called Palestine, meaning that there's never been, according to our current law boundary structures that the white people have set up, they haven't officially created one that they call Palestine. So therefore it hasn't existed. That's their ridiculous. And yes, I saw somebody in there was questioning whether I said Zion Nazi. I most certainly did.
Yeah.
If the shoes fit. I'm like, sorry, but
and they do perfectly.
Yeah. See, I mean, and this is something that's so sad. And this is what bothers me so much about it. It's like the people that are in my life or people that are doubling down with this Zionist ideology and backing Israel. What saddens me isn't the legacy they're leaving for their own kids. That kind of sucks because their kids are going to grow up like children of Nazis, children of slave owners, and have to sort of think about, God, I can't believe my people did this. There's that. That's between them and them. But what bothers me is the legacy that this is going to be for Jewish people in general, because unfortunately, even though we know that Judaism and Zionism are separate, we know that. We talk about it all the time. They're being conflated in such a way that what's going to happen is that Jews are going to go from Holocaust victims to Holocaust perpetrators within 2 generations. And that will become just as much part of our legacy as being survivors of a Holocaust, will be that we were perpetrators of a Holocaust. And even though I know it isn't because of Judaism at all, that is what that legacy is going to look like because of the amount of white Ashkenazi Western Jews that are doubling and tripling down on this crap.
Amen. I don't know how that ended up, but it was supposedly, it's under the star. I think that's what it is. Or maybe that's what it was. Okay. So that's not a paid contributor, but anyway, Brett, thank you so much for the 2 Canadian A. F Zion Nazis, free Palestine. We could not agree more. JG 1982, thank you so much with the gifting of 5 generational change memberships. That is tremendously appreciated. And it's how we allow our channel to continue to grow, regardless of how many views we get on one video, how many live viewers we get at any one time. We are able to grow because of incredible supporters like JG and anybody else who chooses to contribute, whether as a YouTube member or as a patron. Really appreciate it. Ronwell Nagels, great to see you, my friend. For the $2. Imagine if Massey survives Trump's primary in 2026. Well, we both think he probably will survive it. It's too much of first of all, there's a couple of things to keep in mind. It's way too much of a distraction. It's going to continue to piss off the GOP. And whatever aspirations Trump has post-presidency, of which I'm sure he has plenty, he doesn't want to mess that up. So he's talking a big game right now, but there's no telling what the Israel lobby will command him to do. And Trump is completely transactional. So I guess in a way, I don't really put anything past anybody as far as what he may or may not be willing to do. I think that's what we have to consider. And the fact that Trump was doing a joint press conference at Alcatraz with Governor DeSantis earlier today and felt the need to bring up Zohran and how he's such a bad guy. Why would he feel the need to do that? Again, he's only the nominee. He's not even the mayor yet. But if you've got the Israel lobby shitting bricks right now, basically telling you have to go after this guy, he's going to ruin everything. Well, Trump is only more than willing to oblige to basically say, yeah, this guy's terrible. Well, he's not terrible. In fact, he's great. And I certainly look forward to him winning. And even with my friends that I was hanging out with last night on the 4th, I got to tell you, even very conservative guys that I was hanging out with, and they're like, you know what, there's something about that Mamdani. He's kind of a gutsy guy. I'm like, yeah, he is. So when you got those guys saying it, it's like, yeah, that's when you know.
No,
and that's also know.
He's got a pair. He's definitely got a pair.
But that also goes to show you the difference in opinion when it comes to somebody like Zohran, who happens to be a Democrat, versus what a standard bearer Democrat would be, of which people like my friends absolutely despise them. Totally different situation, which I think we all have to take into account. That can only be fair. And I believe we've got one more from Ronwell. Do I see another? Yep, $5 contribution. Thank you so very much. I really do like that profile pic, by the way. I just realized that that is Thomas Massey in old form. You got to get the updated form. No glasses, beard, and much trimmer and fit.
He's
Gotta
Heisenberg.
He's Heisenberg now. My young idol and his dad even let me save money on autographs last June 28th so that I can help Massey retain his house seat by donating to his campaign. Well, listen, we will help out Massey, especially if Trump does come after him. Again,
sure.
It's all bravado right now. But if some dickwad gets in to a primary race against Massey, you can rest assured that he is going to have support coast to coast. Ideology be damned. Borhave, thank you so much for the £5. Sadly, I think there will be a rise in anti-Semitism in the future as the full horror of Gaza emerges and governments seek a scapegoat. Free Palestine. Yeah. Jen, I assume you think that this is probably going to be par for the course in some respect?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was just talking about. Like, that's going to be the legacy that gets remembered in generations. You know, that's what's going to, it's horrifying to me. And yeah, it is absolutely contributing to and perpetrating anti-Semitism that's legitimate. And I can see it. And it's just, you know, we do the best we can here to educate and also talk about the irony that people say anti-Semitic when the people that are claiming it aren't even Semites. They're all a whole bunch of white people. So it's just, the whole thing is silly at this point. I feel like most people see it, just not necessarily in this country and in our minion states, but the majority of the world sees it. They see Israel and they see what it is, and they're not having it. And it's not going to stop, and it's not going to go away. And they're done. They're done economically. They're done. Their tourism is done. They're done. And might makes right for only so long. And they're reaching the end of that.
Pirate Justin, thank you so much for the $5. Jen, as a Jewish white woman, you could easily enjoy a place of privilege, but you choose this struggle. Why?
Well, first of all, I would say that I do enjoy a place of privilege. Not I do. Like, I live a very comfortable life. I'm very fortunate. And yeah, I'm definitely privileged in pretty much every sense of the word. And so I feel like that is what makes it my obligation to lend that privilege. And that's actually a saying I learned from the Lakota Sioux. They have this concept of how to be family, how to be a good family member. And that when they're talking about family, it's like another word for allies or whatever. And the idea in one of the concepts is lend your privilege. You lend your privilege. So the fact that I have privilege is the main reason why I have to do what I do. If I didn't have my privilege and I was just like somebody struggling to survive and working 3 jobs and not able to get out of whatever situation I'm in, then I probably wouldn't be able to have this. So that's the whole point. Yeah.
I think one of the reasons why we have to speak truth to power is because of this clip that I believe was, there's like, I think it's some type of debate hall at Oxford University. At least I'm pretty sure that that's where this is taking place. And Colin, could you please grab what I sent you earlier? I believe, Jen, that this is Francesca Albanese who's speaking here, who I know you like very much.
I love her.
I'm pretty sure this is her. But here's what this lady had to say.
You'll never understand the sacredness of the olive trees, which you've been cutting down and burning for decades.
Colin, you need to fix whatever's
Just
going on.
to spite us,
There it is.
just to break our hearts a little more.
Let's start again. Here we go.
You will never understand the sacredness of the olive trees, which you've been cutting down and burning for decades, just to spite us, just to break our hearts a little more. No one native to that land would dare do such a thing to the olives. No one who belongs to that region would ever bomb or destroy such ancient heritage as Baalbek or Bittir.
You know, the first thing that I think of when people talk about the lunacy and the psychopathy that is the Zionist movement. And
Yeah,
the
that's not Francesca, though, just so you're aware.
If anybody can tell me who this lady is that's speaking at Oxford.
She's a Palestinian writer.
Okay. Yeah, I see the kafia, but I didn't want to assume anything. Oh, okay, there you go. Thank you, Claudia.
Thank you.
Susan Abulhawa, I think is how
I
you say
don't
it.
even try it, man.
Abulhawa.
Like if this were someone in my life, I would just call her Susan A. And we would all just have to get along.
Fair enough. But what Susan is pointing out here, which I think is very important, and this is, and Mary is right, that land is biblical. What people are forgetting, and this is the whole thing about the caucasity, as Jen likes to say, about Zionism. You have these psychopathic people, of most of who are of white Ashkenazi European origin, that claim that this land is theirs, that it is sacred, that it is valuable, and that we must embrace it. And yet, all they want to do is pillage it into the ground as if it never existed.
Well, they have no respect for the land any more than the white people did coming Turtle Island, right? Like these are people that their concept is domination and control and pillaging. They don't consider living in harmony with anything. These are not, like, that's the thing. These are people that are always seeking to conquer and fight. So it's a completely different mindset. The white people have and there's few exceptions. There's definitely people that in older place, like communities in Ireland and stuff, that have like the Celtic thing going on. But for the most part, the white people in the places with the not white people, the white people that don't belong there, they will never, ever, ever understand the connection to that land and the connection to the earth. They will never understand it. And really, it's that identity crisis that they can't even wrap their heads around it. And they're so desperate to find their own sense of who they are that that's what they're doing. And it's just pathetic. Everything that we think of as white Ashkenazi Jews in this country that we've always thought of as Israeli, there's no Israeli. That's not a real thing. Again, that's like if you were born in Disney World, you'd be in Florida, not Disney. That's what Israel, that's not a real thing. Everything that's Israeli is stolen from her people. Everything, their food, their dance, their everything was stolen from them that wasn't brought from their Polish, Russian, Hungarian, like those things are real. And that was their Yiddish, that was forced away from them, but they stole everything from her people.
But Jen, I thought Noah Tishby and Deborah Messing said that they felt that they were at home when they were there.
Yeah, whatever. That's why there's such a high rate of friggin' melanoma amongst Israelis. You don't belong in the desert.
Well, on top of everything else, and this is also the key point here, which I hope people will understand, not just because we've been emphasizing it forever, the conflation between Judaism and Zionism is exactly the hill that they are hoping that they can die on, because they are convinced that they can get away with it and will continue to get away with it no matter how greatly and significantly anti-Semitism continues to grow. And it will grow, and it is growing on the regular. So we have to be wary of that fact. And while they are preaching this ideology of Judaism and Zionism are not the same thing, there are too many people that are just done with the Jewish culture and what they perceive it to represent. And even if somebody like Jen is speaking up, even if somebody like Katie Halper is speaking up, or Max Blumenthal is speaking up, or Gabor and Aaron Mate are speaking up.
Any of the Mates.
Daniel Mate, it's not enough.
Any of them.
Because for them, they see the typical Jew as somebody like Noah Tishby or Deborah Messing. And that's a problem. And much like you have a lot of people in this country who talk about white privilege and we don't like white people, well, for my fellow whites that don't like hearing that, let me assure you that while there is a consensus of dislike towards white people in general, the white people they're really talking about are the Noah Tishbys and Deborah Messings of the world. That's who they don't like.
Those are some white people.
And those are the types of white people that people do not want representing what should not be representing white culture, just as we have said time and again.
There is no such thing as white culture. That's not a thing.
That's not true.
What's white culture?
Irish culture, I guess.
That's Irish culture.
Fair enough. Okay, so then don't say black culture, because
no, because now you're talking Black American, and that is a very, very specific group of people. Now you're talking about generally, are you talking about people from islands that have that culture, or are you talking American descendants of slaves, which is now a culture that was a subculture created in this country? But no, there's no white thing like that. No.
But what I will say is that, and this also gets back to the biggest problems, and often is the case when it comes to the Black community, and we've been saying it for the longest time. The biggest issue that the Black community probably has more than anything else, I know it's easy to blame white America, but it's the Black voices that are speaking on their behalf, the Jim Clyburns of the world, the Al Sharptons of the world.
The Miss Leadership class. Let me explain this to somebody, but here, they're not understanding. Shakespeare is culture, but that's English or Britain or Germanic or whatever it is. It is not skin color. The race is a social construct. So there are definitely contributions that have been Norwegians, Vikings. There's definitely, I was just in places full of Viking relics. I know there is culture there. What I'm talking about is in this country, there is no white culture. There's whatever your culture is from whatever your background is. And that's just the way it is. Race is a social construct. So that's not a thing.
Or destroy ancient cemeteries as you destroy ours, like the Anglican cemetery in Jerusalem, or the resting place of the ancient Muslim scholars and warriors in Ma'manillah. Those who come from that land do not desecrate the dead. That's why my family, for centuries, were the caretakers of the Jewish cemetery on the Mount of Olives, as labors of faith and care for what we know is part of our ancestry and our story. Your ancestors will always be buried in your actual homelands of Poland, Ukraine, and elsewhere around the world whence you came.
That's what I'm saying. That's the culture. There's no white Israeli is a made up thing. And ironically, people like Deborah Messing and Noah Tishby, I'm assuming she's also white, like these aren't even Semites. And yet they're constantly accusing people of being anti-Semitic, yet they don't like the brown people. They don't like the Semites. If they like the Semites, then they wouldn't mind commingling with the Semites and everybody would be living if they like the Semites. But they don't like the Semites because they're white supremacists. So they are the anti-Semites, and they are constantly saying how everyone's being anti-Semitic. What they mean to say is people are being anti-Jewish, which they're not. And nobody's being that except for maybe a small group of outliers that are just bigots. But that's not a like, it's very frustrating.
Yeah. And therein lies what Susan was talking about, which is more than anything else with Israelis, there is a complete lack of respect for culture, because for them, they have to destroy and eliminate a culture to create their own, not one that was organic or born from something that was real. It's manufactured.
And they live with that jealousy, and they will never have that. You can kill as many Palestinians as you think that will make you feel like you're dominant, and you will never have what they have. Like there's no, you are so vapid. Like that's what it, like you have no concept. And I feel like that, but I feel like that with the people in every continent. When you don't belong to a place and you conquer it and take it from people, you will never truly know the value of that place. You will never know it. You will never respect it because it's not yours.
I hesitate to put this up, but Jen sent it to me the other day and I said, I don't want to see it. But the fact is, we have to keep looking at this. We have to. Just as Susan would implore people to keep looking at this, because this is what they're doing. They are mass murdering innocent children every day. The hardest part about this is that when you talk about a psychopathic ideology, the Zionists will say that those kids are not really dead, that this is just made up. You didn't really do these things. Blasphemy. How could you say such a thing? Here's what I know for a fact. And this did not come from Gaza, the Hamas ministry, or whatever anybody else wants to suggest that it may have been. This was a multi-year Harvard study that says, as of today, there are at least not more than, but or that less than, it's at least 377,000 Palestinians, of which at least half of them are children, cannot be found.
And I do, you know what, going forward, we do need to sort of give a trigger warning, a heads up. Not everybody is capable of dealing with this. And like, I'm scarred for life. Like I'm never going to be okay, because like this has changed like my chemistry of who I am. And every once in a while, particular videos, it's just, I can't even as a parent. And I feel like this is when I get so enraged, because when I see a father like that, and he was not able, like, and this is what you're like, you're not able as a parent to keep your kids healthy and safe, which is, that's your job as a parent, is to keep your kids healthy and safe. That is when I think you're dead inside.
Oh, they are.
When you can't do your primary function, you're just dead inside. And it's just, yeah, which is what, and it's things like that when people say, how do you have the courage to, which I don't think it's a courage thing to speak up. It's how do you not, first of all, and it's, I'm just too enraged. Like I am so fucking angry. And when I see stuff like that, and it just makes me so angry, it's when I think about the people that they won't talk to me because I support Palestine. And I think, I don't give a shit. Thank you. Goodbye. Don't let the door hit you on the way out, you fucking Zion Nazi. I have no tolerance for it anymore. And it's because I've been watching this for 2 years. I'm losing my mind.
And you also have, because I have been very clear about this on the channel, because I think there's a lot of people in left spaces that are way too emotionally unhinged at times, where they think everything is racism, everything is sexism, everything is chauvinism. I can assure you that Zionism, and especially Jewish Zionism, is as bigoted and as racist and as supremacist as any ideology in the history of the world. They believe that they are the chosen people, and that by that definition, they can do whatever they want, that they are all kings and queens among men, women, and children, and that they can get away with anything, including committing genocide in broad daylight against people that they believe that they are ethnically, racially, religiously, and socially superior to. That's what they believe. And so even though these kids are being mass murdered every day, and we are helping facilitate it, it's perfectly acceptable as a means to an end for their ideology, of which it is psychopathic beyond words. Now, the reason I believe that the Jewish Zionists are more dangerous than the Christian Zionists is because the Christian Zionists, with all due respect, are a bunch of sheep. These are people that are taught from very early on by their churches. You see, the people that are in Christian Zionism that are really dangerous are people like John Hagee and Kenneth Copeland and Pat Robertson. These are all false prophets leading the sheep to the slaughter. They have created this world to make them believe that we must protect Israel at all costs, whereas Jewish Zionists actually believe in this chosen people supremacist ideology, and a lot of it, of course, is class-based, as we know. So when you look at the people in the Jewish community that identify as Zionists, almost universally across the board, I mean, maybe there's exceptions here and there, but universally across the board, these are people that live extremely comfortable lives. They do
Yeah.
not know the meaning of the word struggle. They have never experienced it, and nor would they ever. These are the people that like to claim that they are socially progressive, but they are the definition of NIMBYs. They would never allow anybody in their backyard that they don't think is worthy. Now, they may feign that they're okay with this in somebody else's neighborhood. That's perfectly fine. You come into our neighborhood, we've got a real problem. That's why the overwhelming majority of affluent Zionists, they all live together. Norman Finkelstein talks about it all the time. There's a reason they live on the Upper East Side, because that's their neighborhood. They own it, like almost wholly. And we're talking probably 1 million people. It's a big deal. And that's where all the concentrated wealth and power is coming from. A very small section of this entire nation gets to decide how everything is done. And so when a Palestinian father has to cradle his 2 children that are dead because we're helping this happen, and someone can look at that and not say, how in the flying fuck are we okay with this? Those are people that, as Jen likes to say, needs to be lanced off like a boil, like this gentleman said that Jen sent me a clip of earlier this afternoon.
Oh,
It's
I love
crazy
this
to
guy.
see the arrogance of these Israelis, these Zionists. Absolutely. You're still seeing posts all over the place of these people still shouting that Israel is great and shouting that they have the right to do this and defending Israel and this and that, and proudly proclaiming they're Zionists. Like, Israel's finished. I think all reasonable people know that. The only question is how many Palestinians they slaughter on the way out. But
right there, that's the point. It's not a question of if, it's a question of when. It's going to happen. And this guy is Irish.
Can we put the link to his? Because I would have, if I knew you were putting it, I would have put the link to it in our.
If you have the link that I sent you earlier to this clip, if you want to drop it in the description after we finish our live, that would be great.
He's somebody that I follow on Instagram, and I believe
he's super Irish. He's like Old Murphy or something.
Yeah, like that. But I believe he lives or is currently residing in Egypt. He lives somewhere in the vicinity of Africa or West Asia. He's somewhere in that vicinity.
Yes. Thank you very much. Okay, so that is his Instagram link, and it will be in the description, so look out for that.
Yeah, he's just great. He's got some really great points. Yeah.
They're finished. The world knows like how disgusting the atrocities of Israel are right now, and these people are going to become pariahs all over the world. The country is economically broke, and the war with Iran's not over. There's more to come. But the reality is that this arrogance makes me think there's no fixing these people.
Yes.
There really isn't. And this is a big problem that we're going to have to start thinking about. Yes. We probably should start thinking about it now before we get there, because we can't become moral monsters either, right? We're fighting.
It's very hard not to be.
I know. This is why I like him so much. He really explains my thoughts on this well. But yeah, this is exactly.
But if it were up to me, I would knock the shit out of all Zionists in the United States. I'd kick them all out of the country. I don't want them here. And you can take whoever doesn't like art, because you know what ends up happening, Jen, when channels start to grow, you know what ends up happening? What? We're now going to get clipped by other small, shit posters that are going to point out that we said things like this.
I don't care.
Clip it, share it, do whatever you want.
What is it we're saying? What do you think they're going to clip? What did they, what?
That I am saying this now from the rooftops. Nakba the Zionists out of the United States.
They need to go away. All right. Yeah, I actually no, he's making these points, but I would suggest that's one of many reasons why I don't want to be in South Florida. We are one of those landing pads for these Nazis. They're coming here. And I've been saying it for a long time. If people want to know what our real immigration problem is, it's Israelis. Okay. I don't honestly, and again, you guys know, I don't even really believe in borders. I'm like everyone's welcome here. Not people that support genocide. I think that people that support genocide can rightfully be excluded from our party. Like, this is our party, and we don't need to invite people that are pro-genocide to our party. And that is, to me, the one group of people that we should be able to keep out, like, just based on principle. But yeah,
Fighting
this
moral
guy's good.
monsters. We can't become moral monsters, but what are we going to do with these people? There's, what, 9 million of them over there? 90% of them are exactly like Benjamin Netanyahu. Every survey they take, they are okay with what's going on in Gaza. They think ethnic cleansing is okay. They think the children should be killed. This is the kind of thing that they think. They actually think this. They're out there chanting death to Arabs while the West is screaming about how bad it is to say death to the IDF. And the IDF is killing 100 people a day. There's no fixing these people. So what are we going to do with them?
That's my problem. That's what I've been saying. Because I don't want them near me.
I don't want them
to
near
live
me.
near them. That's one of the reasons I need to get out of South Florida. And it was like that long before, 2023. Like these people need to be like, I don't know. Maybe Argentina wants Nazis again. They seem to do well with them the first time. Maybe they want another batch. I mean, I don't know. Where should they go?
I think the only thing that they're really concerned about is how much economic infrastructure they bring, which of course is something that is always on the lookout. And yeah, they do have money. They have influence. And look, we're not going to, we're not going to genocide them, because that's not, an eye for an eye makes the whole world blind. But I got to tell you.
No, I think we should give them South Florida. I think they really should, honestly. And I do feel bad for certain people that can't get out of here. But at the end of the day, this will be underwater. And so if that's where the majority of them are.
I'm the last one holding the bag.
Right. Let them be the last people here that can't unload property because nobody will buy it.
And that's a real problem, but that's where they're going to go. I will tell you that in terms of where, especially with Zohran becoming, you see, this is
here it is.
Yeah. Yeah. To Israelis to set up the Patagonia.
To settle the Patagonia, to settle their part. Yeah. They're inviting them to come settle there.
Interesting. Yeah.
Are you surprised? Are you surprised?
No, Argentina has been a corrupt nation forever. So that's not a new thing.
No.
So is Uruguay. It's going to happen. It's just the way it is. And the global South will take any amount of money it could get its hands on, no matter how much blood is covered in it. That's the way it is. And I hate having to say it that way, but something's going to give, and it's already probably in process to some degree. But all I can tell you is that we are going to sever that relationship.
They're just going to cease to be as soon as that happens. And what David Hunter is asking, what does that look like, Israel being finished? We don't really know, but something akin to what happened in South Africa would be the closest parallel that we even have. Some sort of thing between what happened in South Africa and what happened in post-Nazi Germany. Some sort of resolution that is something in between that is what's going to have to happen. Now, and I've heard other people talking about this before, like Craig Mukibar, who I love. He's great. I'd love to have him on the show. But, this is going to require actual peacekeeping forces going into Palestine to protect Palestinians from Zionists. And the Zionists are going to need to be, unfortunately, caged. I mean, I don't know. What do you do with rabid animal? I don't know. But these people cannot coexist on planet Earth with the rest of us. They just can't. And the rest of us understand that. So it's just a matter of when. But yeah, their economy is in the toilet. No one's going to go there. Their tourism is crap. And they really have nowhere else to go. They're screwed. They're screwed in so many ways. So I don't know exactly what it looks like, but something akin to a merger of post-South Africa, post-apartheid South Africa, and post-Nazi Germany, because that's what we're dealing with.
We've got one more story we're going to cover this evening, but one more time, make sure you go over to patreon.com/revolutionary change. For as little as $5 a month, you could become a supporter of our small but mighty and growing channel. And it gives you the opportunity on future shows to be able to call in when we do a call-in live stream. And we will run the names one more time. With that said, since we did our most recent clip, we now have a slew of additional super chats.
And before you get started, I want to address the trolling of the mod in the chat that's been going on for, like, especially when we were having our chat before. And I just want to say something, like, and I'm not getting involved in anybody's personal nonsense. You want to spend your time doing that. But I say, as an outsider to whatever that drama is that you all have going on, as somebody that's lived my years in my life, I actually look at the person who is trolling a chat because of interaction with somebody, you're the one that needs help. You need help. You're actually trolling a chat because of the moderator. Yeah. If that's what you're spending your time doing, you got issues. That's what I'm saying. You got some issues. But as far as like what you're talking about, nobody cares. Thank you for adding to the algorithm, but nobody cares. Take your
That's all you should say. Don't worry about anything else. Just say, hey, thanks for helping with the
I'm just
algorithm.
saying, it says so much more to me about someone that they are spending their time harassing, being annoying and rude in a chat to harass the moderator.
This is why you can't do social media. You can't, you could never handle it. It would drive you absolutely.
It's like you're really dealing with, like, get a life. Seriously, get a life. If you have the time to be trolling a chat because you don't like imagine what great things you could do if you did them for you and not just sitting there to troll someone else. That's all. Like it's just pathetic.
Like JG 1982. Zionism is like term whitey. Like Borg, they seek to incorporate others to their ideology. JG, couldn't agree more. And for another $5, that's how non-whites see them, like Borg. Whitey, they even got Cubans to think they're white. Ted Cruz changed his name to sound more whitey. It's true. That is true. That and not entirely surprising either. I think we could also add on that point. One of our most amazing people that we know, Ozma, thank you so much for the 1999. Thank you, guys. I love that you listen to everyone. Also reminding that fighting for Palestine is not a single remote issue. It's a very related to working class struggles here. By the way, Susan A. might be a great guest. Rachel, we would definitely love to have Susan Abulhawa, I think is how you say her name.
Our biggest issues with guests depends on where they reside. And quite honestly, it has to do with when we're willing to do our lives. If we did recorded shows and recorded interviews like a lot of people, it would be so much easier for us to just set up times, do them and whatever. But we really like to be consistent. And so sometimes a lot of these people either live in the UK or they're in Asia or wherever, you know, they are. And I saw somebody mention the fact that I don't say the Middle East. I will never say that again. That shit is not coming out of my mouth. It's just the caucasity. It really is. It's the caucasity. So like Middle East of who? Of the white imperialists in Europe that decided, well, they're not Far East, they're the Middle East to us because we're the center of the universe. Like we're the sun and everything rotates around us. So they're the Middle East to us. That's not how this works. So let's just assume that we all do agree on the directions of East and West, and I will just state continents accordingly. Okay? Because the caucasity, it's in everything. But yes, I am very aware of that nonsense. It's very annoying.
Dumore 11, thank you so much for the 5 Canadian A. My kind of Saturday night. Keep up the good work. Thank you for your amazing support. And for one more, for good measure, from our caller, Jamie Slomuk, $5. As a diverse American Jew with Eastern European and Syrian ancestry, I proudly say F Zionism, free Palestine. You rock, Jamie, and we're very happy to have you.
Absolutely.
Joseph George with the $5. Counterpoint. Christian Zionists had the most vicious and brutal empire in all of human history.
It's true. It's true. Okay. I think what his argument in terms of saying that he thinks that the white Jewish Zios are worse than the Christian Zios. And again, we're splitting hairs, right? Like it's a whole bunch of people that believe either they are, because in the case of the Christian Zios, the believers, not the leadership class that are just sitting there making money, not those people, but the believers, they really believe that this is this prophecy that they have to do this thing. Like they really believe this. Whereas the Jews, the Jewish Zios, they're most of them are secular. Half of them are probably atheists. Like, these are not people that believe in it other than they believe they're superior.
But I'm Yisrael Chai.
Oh God. It's so, you know what? And when I hear that,
that's a shout out to our friend Rothbone, by the way.
Yeah, he does. He's really funny in that stick.
So,
I mean, it's just so, yeah. That's how I feel. Go ahead.
Amal Awad, thank you so much for the $20. Really means a lot. I am not okay. Like Jen, I am scarred for life. I am so angry. I feel so helpless. Shows like yours give me hope. There are good people in the world that care. Please keep doing what you are doing. God bless and keep you strong. From your words to the good Lord's ears, Amal, inshallah, may Palestine be free.
I love that he says that now, like, because I don't, because again, I feel almost like it would be disrespectful for me to say it because I am an atheist. So it sort of feels a little disrespectful. However, after that Ramadan whirlwind, when I was like 3 nights a week, I was like at different mosques and stuff, I would just be going through my daily life and be like, mashallah, like, you know, like just saying it, like it was like almost like I would hear my Yiddish bubby in my head, but I heard that instead.
No, but my personal experience with Muslims versus, you know, especially Judeo-Christians they are much more respectful of people that don't share their belief versus those that try to come into their spaces that don't feel the same way.
Yes, they're confident in what they believe. They don't feel the need to sell you on it. And that is a big thing. And as somebody grew up, and both to some extent, Jews don't seek converters. That they don't. Okay. However, they do, like when I was growing up in a Jewish neighborhood, they do go out during the holidays and try to like give their nonsense and their beliefs to people. Right. So they're preachy in some way, but the Muslims don't do this. The Muslims don't do that. And whether or not they're secretly looking at you and thinking they're going to hell, I don't know. No one's treated me that way. But the point is, they don't prophesize to you. They don't sit there and try, like, they're not into it.
Rosebud87, thank you so much for the $5. I was raised in a Christian Zionist church in the South in the 1970s. I still get triggered by them. Got out of that cult in my teens. Rosebud, if you have not seen our recent clip with Casey Malone and Terry Heaton about John Hagee and his mega church, and especially the speech he gave about Israel after October 7th, highly recommend checking that out if you haven't already. And thank you so much for your support. Ronwell, thank you again for the $5. Thanks for liking my pick. My idol is named Julian Hilliard from Marvel show called WandaVision. I put Massey with him and myself in my pick to support Massey. That's awesome. And we definitely appreciate that.
Yeah.
Piano Man, great to see you, my friend.
Some of these people I'd love to know, they are like, does Piano Man, I don't know who that picture is, but my son would. My son is a Piano Man, and I know that he would. I don't know who it is. I don't know. Yeah, Piano Man. And here's the thing. Right, but that's the kind of thing my big would appreciate.
Well, it's definitely not Billy Joel. We know that. So.
Oh, it's Rachmaninoff. There you go.
Rachmaninoff. Okay. And Mark J, thank you so much for the $5. Thank you, Jen and Peter. Awesome that you give so much of your time and energy. Well, we do it because you guys are here. And that's the reason. More than anything else, that is why we are here. And even though this is not a traditional show in the sense that we would, be doing a variety of different things, we are still appreciative of everything that you guys do here to support our channel. And that's how we're able to grow it. The money helps, the likes help, the subscriptions help, the sharing helps. It all matters. It makes a big difference, and we can't thank you enough. And so we bring up this final story for the evening that we got from the BBC via the Telegraph at Yahoo News. BBC staff accuse corporation of anti-Palestinian racism. And this isn't just one staffer at the BBC. This is 110 journalists at the BBC.
I love that. Yeah.
BBC. And of course, you would never see something like this at the New York Times or the Washington Post or the Free Beacon or the Wall Street Journal or even the New York Post. You see this in other parts of the world, including the UK, which for the most part suck when it comes to the issue of Israel-Palestine. But clearly, there's more than what meets the eye. And in this case, BBC staff have written to Tim Davie accusing the corporation of anti-Palestinian racism and performing PR for the Israeli government and military. They have called for the removal of Sir Robbie Gibb as a BBC board member because they claim he has, no, not they claim, he does have close ties to the Jewish Chronicle. An open letter to the direct, and of course, this guy is going to look exactly as you would expect him to. An open letter to the Director General signed by 107 BBC journalists, as well as celebrities, including Charles Dance, who was a fine British actor, if there ever was one. Charles Dance, I believe, is Game of Thrones.
I don't know. Don't even get me started on that Miriam Margolyes. She's amazing. I love her.
Mike Lee and Juliet Stevenson claims that the corporation is an organization that is crippled by the fear of being perceived as critical of the Israeli government. This bloke right here is Sir Robbie Gibb. Jen, would you have expected him to look anything different than what he looks like?
No, he looks like a twat. He just does. Yeah, he looks like just a total twat.
Wait,
scroll up a little bit. Scroll up a little bit. Let me see something. Yeah, no, not married. Continue.
The letter was signed by anonymous staff from BBC News, the World Service, BBC Arabic, and Panorama, amongst others. One of the signatories is from the HR department. Keep going. It has dismayed Jewish staff who fear there is an anti-Israel lobby within BBC News. You see, herein lies the problem. The conflation between Zionism and Judaism is very real. And so the fact that they have to highlight that it was the Jewish staff who fear that there is an anti-Israel lobby is ridiculous. The letter criticizes the BBC's decision to drop a documentary about doctors in Gaza owing to impartiality concerns. The film will be shown tonight on Channel 4 instead. It singles out Sir Robbie, the former number 10 communications director under Theresa May, who is now a BBC board member and sits on the editorial standards committee. We are concerned that an individual with close ties to the Jewish Chronicle, an outlet that has repeatedly published anti-Palestinian and often racist content, has a say in the BBC's editorial decisions in any capacity, including the decision to not broadcast Gaza medics under fire. The letter reads. Yes, I have to give you my British accent just once. We believe the role of Robbie Gibb, both on the board and as part of the editorial standards committee, is untenable. In fact, Sir Robbie resigned as director of the Jewish Chronicle just last year. Sir Robbie and the newspaper have been contacted for comment. I am sure that they have not said a word. Scroll up there for a second. I want to see what that says. BBC tell the truth. Israeli ethnic cleansing of Palestinians started in 1948. Israel is an apartheid state. The UK government aids Israeli war crimes. You could say the UK and US government are responsible for Israeli war crimes. The BBC has been embroiled in numerous anti-Semitism rows, including Saturday's Glastonbury coverage. I don't think there was anything anti-Semitic about that. Free, free Palestine, death, death to the IDF. When viewers saw pump rock duo Bob Vylan chant death, death to the IDF, and from the, you see, it's one thing if you're going to say the IDF, it's another thing entirely. You're going to say that from the river to the sea is anti-Semitic. Jen?
Well, the whole thing is silly. First of all, there's no problem with saying death to the IDF. First of all, that's just silly. That's they get to chant death to Arabs all the time. I've been watching these people scream death to Arabs. So death to an entire group of people based on a language they speak across the entire globe is okay. But death to a particular group of militants that are militants for a Nazi regime, that's a problem. So it's just silly, and it's just a distraction. And while they're distracting you and keeping the focus on that nonsense, they're just keep killing Palestinians. So it's absurd. It's absurd. And yes, death to the IDF.
And the one thing that has been proven over the past week since we covered Bob Villan at Glastonbury, keep in mind that they said that the Zionists have systemic control. Some are just going to say it's the Jews, but the Zionists have a systemic control over political and economic affairs the world over. So when Mr. Bobby Villan makes his statement at Glastonbury, the reaction was swift and expected and not at all surprising. Gets his visa revoked, gets dropped from his label. Now no one wants to any of the big, what you would consider arenas or stadiums that are having shows of different musical artists throughout the summer. They're getting dropped left and right. And why is that? Because they exercise their free speech rights? That's what happened. But in real time, they are showing just how powerful they really are, including the BBC, which is supposed to be one of the probably two most recognizable and supposedly trusted news sources in the United Kingdom. And
but
yet,
it's no different than our shit.
No, how could it be?
No, it's the same as our shit. Every once in a while, they have a good sort of impartial take on our domestic shit. You know what I'm saying? Just from being like outside of it. But in terms of empire, it's the same difference.
That's very true, Harashnu. The Israelis write pop songs celebrating their actions.
Oh, yeah, and they're yelling death. I see an interesting question, so I wanted to address this. But do all Jews speak modern Hebrew? Language is constructed to support the Zionist project. No, Jews in general do not speak Hebrew. Hebrew was an entirely evaporated language. I don't even know if it was ever spoken. It was a written language, but it was resurrected in the 40s by the early Zios to create a new language, to create this whole identity. It's all based on a fiction. And in fact, what they did was they forced the new immigrants, the new Zionists that were either Hungarian, Polish, Russian, wherever they were from, that were coming there to colonize, they all spoke Yiddish. Those people all spoke Yiddish, and they were forced to give up speaking Yiddish and forced to learn Hebrew. And I saw somebody in the chat before said that Zios hate Yiddish. Yes, they do. Yes, they do. And yet that's the language of our people. And I say our people in that my people were all spoke Yiddish.
Very interesting. Why do they? What is the issue there? I don't understand that. Why do Zionists hate Yiddish? What is that all about?
So, okay, this is what I think. This is the general white supremacist problem with Zionism is this concept that it really is based on this idea of that Semites are bad and white Euros, Westerners are good. And Jews back in, the turn of that century and were always thought of as lesser in so many places, and they weren't considered white. And so the way to have some sense of identity and to be like what you would see as equal to other white Euros, you needed a language, you needed a whole thing, you needed a country, you needed a whole state. And so the creation of Zionism is very white supremacist in its entire being. And one of the things that they looked down upon were people that spoke Yiddish, because those were the dirty Semitic Jews that anti-Semitism was based on, because anti-Semitism is a European concept. Anti-Semitism doesn't exist in places that are full of Semites. They never even heard, that's not a thing in Palestine, right? Anti-Semitism comes from Europe and this concept of white supremacy. And that's the whole basis for it. So when you think of creating this superior, this is why there's Zion Nazis. They're superior ethnic race, their superior ethnic culture, whatever they are, it is Hebrew. That's the original language of the, you know, of all of the Torah and all this stuff. And so they think that's part of their image, when in fact our people spoke Yiddish. And it was also a class thing too. But yeah.
Amen. As we wind down for the evening, we do have a few more super chats that have found their way into our good graces, of which we are extremely thankful. JG, one more time with the $2. Wankers and Cod Swallop Insanity. And another $2. Borg become Whitey, assimilate others. Catch all that, Jen?
Borg become Whitey, assimilate others. Well, you know what Borg is.
Do I?
Borg from Star Trek.
Oh, I'm not
Borg,
I'm not a Trekkie.
Okay, I hear you, JG, 1982. Borg is, it's like I'm not going to say a species. It's a collective that lives on a cube, and they're all connected brain-wise into the cube. So they're all the collective, and they're all brain connected. It's basically, yeah, that's us. We are Borg. And that's how they say it. It's not we are the Borg. It's we are Borg. Yeah.
Amelie 70, thank you so much for the 5 Canadian A. As a Palestinian, thank you for all you do. Thank you for your grace and for your strength. And we are sending our best to you and your family. Arm with Harmony, thank you so much for the gifted 1 generational change. But we got to change that, Colin. It's got to say revolutionary change.
How do we do that? Where is that?
Yeah, got to get that switched.
We will. We're working on it. We're working on it.
Unless your intention is to give it to generational change, but of course
there is. Well,
yeah,
it's us. Resistance is futile. See, Rachel understands Borg.
Yeah, there you go.
That's their phrase. Resistance is futile.
So we are going to have a guest.
Oh, this is important here.
Jamie with the $5. Thank you so much. Yiddish is my first language. The Zios Yiddish symbolizes the submissive Jew who they despise.
That's what I'm saying. Like it was like
it's a class war.
Yeah,
it's a class war.
Yeah.
Period.
That's exactly what I was saying. It represented like the Jews that weren't worthy of being European, and so they see it as lesser.
And Arm with came late yet still satisfying. Thank you to everyone here. Yes, it's been an amazing evening. Even though our numbers weren't over the top, we got close to 250 live viewers, but the chat was extremely lively tonight. You guys have been extremely generous. We have 29 super chats. So you guys are just an amazing support network, and hopefully lots more people are going to see this. We currently don't have a slate of guests lined up. Maybe it's the summertime. We're going to work on that. But we do have one big guest coming in 2 weeks, Wally Rashid. If you guys have not been following Wally, he is got a huge following on Instagram. He also has his own YouTube channel that is growing by the day. He is a very outspoken Palestinian who has been doing amazing work covering all the things that have been going on. I think he's probably like, I don't know, somewhere between 20 and 25 years old. So, he's really doing an amazing amount of work. We are definitely going to be scheduling Kim Iverson to come back on the show. She is going to be returning from Italy very soon, so we can coordinate based on time.
Travers, you are such a dork.
Travers is we can accept that. And the great thing is, we would 100% have Low Key as a guest. 100% have him as a guest if we could get his attention. And if you guys have any connections at all, the only link that we still have to our old channel is going to be this. Any suggestions that you have, please send an email to generationalchange@gmail.com. So if you have a guest suggestion, if you have, listen.
Yes, we'd love to get Thomas Massey.
We, of course, would love to get him. We have, listen, Thomas Massey, follows us on social media. He likes Jen. He has never hidden that fact before. He has shared, he has liked and appreciated our commentary, which is amazing.
Have you asked him? Have you sent him?
I've asked him, but he hasn't responded as far as being a guest. He's very selective, obviously. He does not go on a lot of shows. I mean, he's been on Tucker, he's been on Theo Vaughn, but outside of that, he doesn't really do a lot of that stuff. But he clearly wants his message out there. And there's something that's telling me in my gut that he's going to run for president in 28. And I hope he does.
We have had 2 sitting Congress people as guests on our show in the past.
Why do I feel like we've had,
I think 2. I don't know who you're thinking of. We had Marie Newman. We had Marie Newman when she was the rep in Michigan. Okay. Illinois. She's Illinois.
We had Ro Khanna.
And we had Ro Khanna.
Trying to think if there was anybody else.
Jasmine.
Well, Jasmine Crockett, yeah. And Jasmine Crockett's been on here twice. But I can assure you guys that Jasmine Crockett will never be on our show.
No, she was on the first time when she had just won the Texas State House and was actually making some waves.
And to Jasmine's credit, Jasmine did come on one time when she was a sitting congresswoman.
Yes, she did. So we've had 3 sitting congresspeople.
But Jasmine has obviously, again, it's her and Alex are basically competing for the millennial future of the Democratic Party. They want to be. It's gross. It's gross. And the fact of the matter is, Jasmine has her audience. So does Alex, and they're going to use it. As I say, don't hate the player, hate the game. It's not going to result in anything substantial in the long run. But hey, they've got a career now, and they got a big one. Donald James taking us home with the $5. You guys rock nuts. Have you guys heard about the letter hacks this space? Listen, we were both on the letter hack together. And
we've had him on. We've had him on too. Yeah. Wait, who was he? The last time we had him on, he was on with, was it with Harvey? He was with Harvey K.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I think you might be right about that.
Harvey K. And, and I'm sure we'll have to get him on again soon. Harvey K. and the letter hack did a project. They did a book.
We need to get John Nichols back on again because he could talk about the bill.
The big, beautiful bill.
In fact, he might be a good guest for Monday. So I'm gonna look into that.
This pleases me right here. This pleases me.
Oh, absolutely, 100%. And you know what? John Nichols is the type of person who, if he came on here and saw what type of audience we'd have now, he'd be like saying, you guys earned it. You deserved it. You're the best. He's a true journalist. And I cannot thank him enough for the work.
Also, David Sirota. I saw him talking about something recently that he's working on that looks really good. There's some interesting stuff going on.
Yeah. It's you have to maintain that positivity, and you guys just will not let us go. Ron Nagels, with the $5 again. If Massey ever runs for president in 2028, I'll do everything I can to become a district, then national delegate for him, like Ron Paul did. I will tell you guys, if Massey is considering a run for the presidency in 28, and I believe he is, because I think the field is going to coalesce behind J.D. Vance, he's going to have a real chance. I think he will, because he's different. And the difference between him and somebody like Ron or Rand Paul, Thomas Massey has a great personality. Like, I could see him on the trail doing really well and just really engaging people in a way that makes them support and it isn't even so much his ideology. It's just, we need to support people that are not owned.
Make no mistake, J.D. Vance is horrifying.
He is.
You might as well just put in Peter Thiel.
He's Peter Thiel's puppet.
I know. And the whole thing is just creepy and gross. And quite honestly, anybody in that party that stands up to that side of the party is a better option. It's a better option. It's the non-corporate option.
You got nothing with the Democrats at this point. You're not going to wait a few years for Zohran to jump in, because that ain't happening. So that just goes to show. It goes to show. You want to know how dead the Democratic Party is? A guy who isn't even the elected mayor yet, a state rep an assemblyman out of New York State, is the hottest commodity and in many ways the leader of a dead party. Smash that like button. Share, subscribe, do all those things that we ask you to do. We hope you all had a great 4th. Keep fighting the good fight. We'll see you Monday, and
Free Palestine.
have a good night, guys.